Hello, and welcome back to Blood, Books, and Binge-Watching. Per usual, I am Megan, joined by Rachel, and today we begin our very first movie episode.
Yay!
Yes! Personally, I have been itching to get into our movie reviews, and what a perfect movie to start on. Today, we will be covering one of the biggest horror movies of 2019, Midsommar. Yes! And to be honest, I was genuinely shocked to see, one, how many horror movies came out in 2019, but also Midsommar is, in fact, not among, even the top 10. It is number 12 highest grossing just in 2019. And Chapter 2 was number 1. Not really surprising there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the mass amount of horror movies and honestly how much money they made is really heartening to see, you know? We've been a really, really fun age of horror in the last 6, 7-ish years or so. And I love that we're getting really bizarre movies. I don't know if we'll ever cover Barbarian, but that movie's fucking insane. I don't know if you've seen that.
Is it
Rachel.
that new? Is it new? No.
That's been it's post-COVID, and I know it was maybe 2023 that came out. Something so it's in the last 2-3 years, I think.
Yeah. We definitely have a pre-COVID and post-COVID era of horror.
Yeah, definitely. And then Malignant,
along with everything else, but
no, and I can't talk about weird ass movies without bringing up Malignant. I don't know if you've seen that movie either.
I've seen part of it. I accidentally fell asleep.
That is A-okay. Wow. Just wow. Yeah. Malignant is a wild movie. I highly recommend. It is gory, but it was a moment. Yeah. Getting back on topic, Midsommar means a lot to me on a very deep level. To get personal with some of you guys here that might not know. So after being with a man like Christian for nearly a decade, it did its damage, and that I am still unpacking and dealing with on some level pretty much every day. And this movie makes me remember the family and friends I had around me who were there, on those long nights I spent over dumbass fights that I had with him, or when he'd go MIA for days without notice, only to reappear and act as if I'm clingy for trying to track him down. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I said, this movie hit me deep. And of course, there's a lot of nuance to that, but everyone that's kind of the fun thing, and what I love about horror is that everyone takes something different away from one of those movies. And it is one of those things where horror movies are very healing for people who have experienced a lot of trauma in their lives, because horror deals with a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
On any level, with across the board of the genre, there's some sort of traumatic event happening in horror. So this is just one example for me that really has stuck with me since 2019. It blew my fucking mind in the theater when I went and saw this movie, which is another fun story, but for a different time. Anyway, and this is also what put Florence Pugh on my radar.
Yep.
And I fell in love with her instantly. And I really hope I can meet her someday, because I just feel like we'd be friends, cheese-loving friends.
Oh my gosh.
My lactose intolerance would not come between us, Florence, I promise.
Oh my gosh, doing a charcuterie board with Florence Pugh.
Dude, her cooking with Flo during quarantine in 2020, one of the things that got me through. Just watching her vibing in her kitchen, sipping on some wine, cooking up good food, teaching us all about cooking food. It was such a great vibe, and I love her.
She's amazing. So yeah, this movie also put her on my radar. Love her. I've also seen Don't Worry, Darling is another one of my favorite.
Oh, it's so good.
I love that movie. Yeah, for me, I connected very similarly with this movie. A lot of different elements in here that really struck a chord with me, specifically in the psychedelic realm and mind control. And so I can't wait to dive into that. So A24 films are really special because A24 is an independent film and TV company. Independent films are so incredibly important given the monopoly some production studios have created. Disney, we're looking at you.
There's a little bit. Buying up everything.
So to give artists the space to create their passion projects, ranging from utterly bizarre horror to romance and period pieces, is tough to come by. A24 was founded in 2012 by three men, Daniel Katz, David Finkel, and John Hodges, who have all worked in film before. Some of the earliest films produced by A24 were Ex Machina and Room, along with The Witch. I love that one too. It's very, very wild. All movies we highly recommend watching because they're excellent.
Yeah. I think Room was my introduction to A24. And
oh, really?
That movie is fucking fantastic. It made me sob. And it's like anxiety inducing the entire time, but what a freaking movie. Now, let's get some facts on this film and then jump right on into that plot. So some information about the movie, as we've already said, written and directed by Ari Aster. Our main cast includes Danny, played by Florence Pugh, love of my life. Jack Rayner, who's playing Christian. We hate the character, love the actor. He did a great job. Will Poulter is in this movie, playing Mark, one of Christian's friends. And Will Poulter has such a fucking range. Can we take a second? Like, from We're the Millers, one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life, and then going to like Midsommar, and then God, he's done so much.
He's I think I'll have to look up the name. He's got another movie coming out. It's a war film. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think also an A24 movie. I don't know.
Is it?
I can't confirm. Don't take my word on that. But yes, he is in that movie with Joseph Quinn. Yeah.
But I just love, we'll get into it. I just love his personality shines through even in this film.
Oh, yes.
He does bring that like comedic relief.
I wrote many a note about Mark. We have William Jackson Harper, who plays Josh. And now I didn't get very far in the show, but he is in The Good Place.
I did.
Which I did not watch, but I know that he's really great in that.
I wrote a joke about that.
Hell yeah. Here. I can't wait to hear it. And then we have Wilhelm Blomgren, who is playing Pele. This movie was released on July 3rd, 2019. Good old July 4th movie. Great for the Americans. Let's go to Sweden. And to no one's surprise, or at least it shouldn't be, this movie's rated R. The gross revenue for this movie for that year was $27.5 million. And I believe the budget was less than that. I didn't do too much research into like all of the budgeting things too much for the intro, because I know that's not what we're focusing on. But I mean, I think, for an independent movie, sure. I think that is a good return. Like, this movie was huge. Like, I remember this movie being very big when it came out. And we're also going to throw up, granted, it's rated R, so that's kind of a trigger warning in itself. But for anyone that's listening to us that has not watched it before, we will throw up some trigger warnings for suicide. We're not going to describe it in too much detail, but there is some gore.
Yeah.
As well as some sexual assault, which we will divulge into how that's framed at that point. Because I know it's a plot point of the movie that is very widely discussed. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So let us get on to the plot and find out what Midsommar is all about. We open up on a tapestry, and we'll just come back to that later. That's all I'm going to say. It's depicting something. And then we cut to a snowy sky and landscape, lots of endless trees. There's a woman singing in the background, kind of like a chanting almost in a foreign language. Now we cut to a home. We're inside the home, and a voicemail is heard being left by this girl named Danny for her parents who are sleeping in the bed next to like the voicemail machine. I really should know what that's called. I'm a 90s kid. The camera pans through her parents' room while like Danny talks over the voicemail. She's mentioning how she's worried about her sister. She got a scary email. And then, the voicemail ends, and now we cut back to Danny. So we see Florence Pugh now, and she's reviewing all the messages that she's sent to her sister. The last message from her sister, Terry, reads, quote, "I can't anymore. Everything's black. Mom and Dad are coming too. Goodbye." Yeah, that's a terrifying email.
And we get a very quick glimpse that Danny, this character Danny, ultimately feels responsibility for protecting her entire family, right? She's like starting to panic. And it is mentioned in this conversation she's about to have that her sister's bipolar.
Yeah, so that's definitely a part that I latched onto and will definitely be bringing up. So upon receiving this message and kind of sitting there for a while trying to send messages back, not receiving anything back, Danny ends up calling Christian, her boyfriend, on the verge of tears. She's clearly, like, very worried, but talks to him like all is fine. Like, he picks up the phone and she goes, "Hey, how are you?" But she's, like, meanwhile wiping tears from her face. So she's putting up this front already. And she asks him if he wants to come by and hang out later. And he's currently hanging out with his friends, and he goes, "Oh, did we have plans to hang out later?" And she goes, "Well, not set plans, but like I'm just wondering if you'd want to come over." And like he goes, "Yeah, I should be able to swing by." So like the way this conversation goes is giving us a very good look into their relationship, like how this is written, how this is acted. Christian asks Danny, like I said, if they discuss plans, as if she needs to like schedule time to be with her own boyfriend. Like, "Oh, I gotta pen you in." I'm like, I mean, not to say like, well, no, you should drop everything if someone's calling you saying that they need you, but Danny hasn't done that at this point. I'm getting off topic. So the way that he's coming off, he's speaking like it'd be an inconvenience to come see her. Like "Oh, I should be able to come swing by." That read very like, you're annoying me with this request, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to spend time with my own
very
girlfriend.
like emotionally one-sided.
Very much. Yeah. He asks her how the sister situation is going, and Danny tells him that she's getting nervous. He completely dismisses her. He says, "It's probably fine. Like, she does this all the time, right?" Like, and she says, "You get worked up so much, and she does this to you and keeps doing this to you because you let her." So he puts the blame on Danny for freaking out, like for starting to like get worried about her own sibling. Like, what the actual fuck?
Yeah, he's just downplaying her concerns. And she's, revealed that her bipolar sister just sent her an email saying that everything's black and her mom and dad are coming. Like, that is a very warranted concern.
Agreed.
And Danny's response to this end of this conversation, she tells him, "I'm very lucky to have you." So it's like we're starting to see the emotional manipulation, very blatant, point blank.
Yeah, because she doesn't, she doesn't go to that place immediately. She does try to stand up for herself and be like, "Well, no, like you said, like she has bipolar. Like,
right.
I'm going into crisis mode because my sister has this mental condition that would cause her to do things to harm herself and maybe others." So like, yes, I have a right to be in crisis mode, but he like blames it on her, tells her she's being ridiculous, and he says it's a ploy for attention. And then Danny caves, telling him like, "Oh yeah, he's right. I just needed you to tell me. I'm lucky to have you." And it's like, and just even when before they hang up, she says, "I love you," and the way he gives an exhale and says, "I love you." And it drives me fucking insane. Because it's like, oh my god, you're just so like, you can't, God forbid you tell your girlfriend you love her.
Yeah.
If you've gotten to that point.
Just a little piece of Rachel lore. My grandmother, she was schizophrenic and bipolar. And so like she'd be great one day, she'd be up for like 3 days in a row being really active, and then my friends would like pick me up to take me to the mall in high school, and we'd go around the corner and she'd be like at a rock with a trench coat on and a suitcase. So like I'd be like, "Can we put my grandma in your car? We got to take her home."
Yeah.
But so the downplaying this, it just enraged me. Anything with mental health that people downplay, I'm just like
yeah, he could give less of a fuck. And so they hang up, and now it cuts to Danny being on the phone with one of her girlfriends, and she's venting to her healthily about how she's always leaning on Christian and how she's roping him into her family crap. As if he isn't your literal boyfriend and the one who's supposed to be there and going through these things with you. Like, and her friend's trying to be the voice of reason. Like, I want to shake this friend's hand because she is doing all that she can to try to, like, get through to Danny and be like, if he's not willing to be there for you to help you with all of this, then maybe he's just not the right person for you. Maybe he's not worth it. And she's like, well, no, because, and Danny still just, she flips it back on herself. She continues to blame herself for these things because at this point, Christian's pretty much just, like, groomed her to feel that way about herself. And yeah, she continues to talk about how she's leaning on him, bringing too much baggage, and so that way she overwhelmed him. Like, if I'm overwhelming him, then maybe he's gonna leave, and her friend's like, okay, good riddance. Like, her friend's like, you shouldn't be a chore. And if Danny thinks that she is leaning too much, and maybe he's just not communicating back. What a world. He's not being as open as she is. And just, like, claps for unnamed friend. I love unnamed friend.
Yeah, I relate to that part a lot because I felt, you know, like the little lore I just revealed, I feel that very deeply, right? And my partner that I was with before, who in a light could partially be Christian, let me revise this. Well, I'll save that for later. He is, you know, he was very much like Christian, like, you know, you shared that you've also had. And yeah, that feeling of just being a burden, but at the same time, like wanting to save your family and be the protector and et cetera, et cetera. And it took me finally having a healthy partner that helped me rid that mindset. So my unnamed friend is my partner.
I love that. No, yeah, I get flashbacks to college and, like, being up. I think I stayed up through an entire night, and one of my roommates stayed up right with me, even though she knew, honestly, how ridiculous I was being.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, but, you know, trying to work in therapy and give myself the grace to say, you know, it wasn't, I can't put all the blame on myself for that. Like, yes, I'm responsible for my own actions, but, like, there's a reason I reacted that way, you know? What's the reason? So yeah, you know, I'm very thankful to all of the people in my life that were my, quote, unnamed friend in this scenario. And yeah, it's quite jarring, honestly, realizing that later in life, being like, damn, I really just, oh, wow. Like, yeah. It's wild. It's
I really turned a blind eye there.
Yeah, just looking back at all the shit, I'm like, damn, okay, I was okay. Yeah, there's a lot of shit there. So as she's talking with her friend, Danny sees a call waiting from an unknown number, and then the camera cuts over to Christian hanging out with his friends, Mark, Josh, and Pele. They're at a bar. And Mark is in the middle of telling Christian that, like, dude, you gotta get out of this relationship, like, you've been wanting out of this for a year, and then they blame it on Danny being too needy, which is why he's still in the relationship. So, like, even they're not blaming him for staying in a relationship he doesn't want to be in anymore, which is even more of a kick in the face because I was on that level as well. Like, years I stayed with this man after the point that I knew he didn't want me anymore, and yet there I was. Like, it was extremely toxic, and these men are toxic man babies, all of them, and in some way, shape, or form. Some more than others, but, like, they all have that level within them. His friend Josh is somewhat of a grown-up, though, in this moment. Says, like, oh, Christian, maybe you're playing out this drama to avoid what you should be doing, working on his thesis, his PhD. Tell me how the fuck these men are in college or grad school for a PhD. For what? Josh is the only one, realistically, that I could be like, okay, yes. You are here, and you are doing the actual work. These other two, I'm like, what the fuck are you getting PhDs for? What the hell?
Diddling your butthole. No, just kidding.
No. They would never touch their own buttholes. Are you kidding? Do you think these men wipe their asses? That's funny. So an attractive waitress comes by, and then all the guys comment about how they're going to Sweden in June, and, like, Christian, think about all the hot ladies there. Like, Pele makes this really weird, icky comment to Christian, be like, think about all the hot Swedish women you're gonna impregnate this summer. It's like, you don't have to say impregnate. That's weird. You could just say fuck. Like, Christian starts getting a call from Danny, and then Mark, like, freaks out on him, being like, are you kidding? That's her again? This is ridiculous. And then he tells him to ignore her and says she's abusing you. It's abuse. It's like, shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me?
That part.
Oh, I could have hit him across the face right there. And, you know, in this moment, instead of ignoring her like he could have done, Christian does get up and walk away from the table to answer her call. And as soon as he picks it up, he's like, hey, what's going on? And Danny answers, just letting out like the most guttural, awful cry and like hoarseness in her voice, just repeating no, 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 and just the, oh my god, the sobbing that she does. Like the music is like a slow string instrument, like dragging across a slow string instrument. It's super eerie, just very unsettling vibes. And you're also hearing Danny crying over the sound of this. Like, it is very immersive, very overstimulating in a sense.
Yeah.
And cutting back to her home, while we're hearing all of this, where her parents and sister are, we see that the fire department is there and hoses are running 2 cars in the garage, the exhaust pipes up through the home and then under the parents' bedroom door, and it's all taped off. The fire department opens the door and her parents are dead in their sleep. Then we cut over down the hallway to an open door and see her sister Terry, who is sitting on the ground with the hose, not like, it's really disturbing. Like, it's, her hose is connected to her mouth, but she's like wrapped herself in duct tape, but then was vomiting from the exhaust. So she's like covered in her own vomit, and just, it's really a very gruesome scene. But she's also unfortunately deceased in this moment. And the cameras just continue zooming in towards Terry, and I'm like, we don't want to see this any more close up, please. But it does pan up to her computer screen where we see a notification about 4 new emails from Danny. We now cut to Christian is at Danny's apartment, and they're on the couch, and he's just like holding her in his lap while she's like sobbing and screaming. She has no voice left. Even as I was typing that out watching the movie, like, I was holding back tears. Like, it is so hard for me not to cry in those scenes. We'll talk about it in Hereditary too, but the actresses that they find for these movies are able to let out the most heart-wrenching, realistic cries and screams I think I've ever heard in a movie. It hits you hard.
It does. Very, like, hands down, one of the most impactful scenes of cinema.
Yeah,
absolutely. And now she's left with an emotionally unavailable partner as her only source of comfort and connection. So everything that has been revealed about him and how he views their relationship, and now that's what she's working with.
Yeah, like, even the way he's holding her is like, he's sitting on the couch and she's kind of like bent over him, and he's holding her that way versus like cuddling her. He's like holding her from like toppling off this couch. So it's like, even the way that like he's looking not at her, he's not saying it, not that you could say anything. Like, what do you say in that situation?
No, but it's very disconnected. It's not a loving embrace.
Exactly.
It's you can tell that there's distance between it. So
the camera, once again, there's a lot of camera zooming in this movie. Like, you're just getting closer and closer and closer to this uncomfortable scene that you're being forced to watch, only to then kind of being given the breath to kind of go up and out the window. And then we get all of the title credits. Welcome to Midsommar.
A24 magic, baby.
What a jarring introduction to a movie. Oh my lord. So we cut to sometime later, and it's daylight in the city, and Danny's curled up in what I believe is her bedroom, but I'm not sure if it's her bedroom or Christian's bedroom. But looking around, I don't think Christian would have this like nice of art in his apartment. I'm like, college age, not even college age, but just like, I don't see Christian having this kind of taste. So it makes me think it's her room. But above her wall, and she's like curled up facing the wall, so she is closed off completely. And above her is a poster of like this massive bear and a little girl, and the little girl's wearing like a crown of flowers and like petting the snout of the bear. And that will come up later. We'll see. Christian then comes into the room, opening the door. So she is like closed off, facing the wall, like with the door closed, like completely isolated. So he comes in, asks how she's feeling, and then she's like, oh, where are you going? Because he's like dressed to leave the apartment. And he's like, oh, I was just going to go to that party for like 45 minutes. It's like, where the fuck are you going? Your girlfriend is here grieving the loss of all of her family. And you're like, I'm just going to go to a party just for
45
a
minutes.
little while.
Yeah. Like,
Be
it's
so
no
fucking
big deal.
for real.
I know.
So yeah, like already being isolated, we don't know necessarily if she asked to be enclosed in that room and she wanted that space. We don't know. But I just think even whether we knew or not, it is symbolic of that separation. Like he is not being there for her whatsoever. And so Danny's, it says like, no, I'll come out with you. I wasn't sleeping. Like, it's fine. I'll just come out. And at the party, we just see Danny completely dissociating. She is in a cloud, not currently there. But we hear kind of the audio get muffled to clearer as she hears someone say like, oh yeah, we're going to Sweden, including Christian. And so she looks up and she's like, oh, you're going? And he goes, oh yeah, we're thinking about it. We're talking about it. It's like more like talking out of your ass.
Yeah.
Like they just said like, oh yeah, when we go. And then when she asks like, oh, well, when are you going? They're like, mid-June to mid-July, 2 weeks from now. Jesus Christ. Like, Are you kidding? So Christian tries to like play it off as he's like, oh yeah, I'm not going. I'm just thinking about it. I'm not going to do it, girl. I'm just thinking about it.
No
Shut
accountability,
up.
Nothing.
None. He refuses to take any accountability at all. They get back to the apartment and she decides to confront him about it like a grown-ass adult who can communicate. And so she asks him about it. And the shot here, I just need to point out, is very wonderful, and it's not the first time this is going to happen. So we see Danny, she's closed the door and she's got her back to the door, and he's framed kind of sitting down at a desk, but we see his reflection in a mirror. So we're facing Danny and seeing Christian in the mirror. Yeah. So I feel like it's a really good indicator, once again,
yes,
of just how two-faced, how what's the word? Not transparent. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to say. But yeah, just how like the fakeness and like, no, you're talking to a reflection of me.
Because you can't even, and I love that you brought that up. I love your brain so much.
That's 4 years of studying film, my friend.
Yeah.
This is what I went to college for. There's a reason I'm excited to do this. So yeah, they start talking about it, and Danny asks why didn't you tell me? That's all I'm asking. Just why didn't you tell me? And he plays it off like, oh yeah, like I told you I wanted to go. And she's like, yeah, but I didn't know you were going. Like, sure, it's one thing to say like, hey, I want to go to Sweden. It's another thing to say, I have tickets to Sweden. Like, two very different things.
Yeah.
And speaking of, he says like, oh, well, I just decided today, so I didn't get a chance to tell you yet. And she calls him the fuck out. She's like, you already have a ticket. So every escape route this man is trying to make, she is just blocking. And I'm proud of her for this. Like, she's not backing down. She's like, no, here's all the evidence, actually. I have receipts. And he knows that he's caught in his lie. He knows that he's got nowhere else to go. So then he's like, I'm sorry. Like, as if he's not sure what he should be apologizing for. He's like, I don't know why I'm apologizing, but I'm sorry. It's like, oh, I want to fucking strangle him.
Would that be considered sociopathic behavior? No. Maybe.
I'm not. I only took one psychology class, so I'm not too sure.
Well, they did a very good job with this character embodying the, just horrible lack of emotional immaturity, I guess is the best way to.
Yeah, I jump between whether it could be something like that, and I know that we just came off of War of Two Queens and talked about Isbeth with her narcissism, but it also sprinkles of narcissism in here as well.
100%.
Especially the accountability piece. Like, that screams the narcissism. Yeah. Like, I'm the victim. What do you mean? It's not my fault. Like, that's, yeah. So she gives him an example in this moment of like, well, what would you say if I came up to you and I said, oh, me and a group of my friends are going to China and we're leaving in 2 weeks and we're going for 3 months. And he's like, well, that's completely different because I'm going to Sweden and it's for 1.5 months. And it's like,
it's the dumbest argument. Yeah, it's the dumbest argument.
It's like completely consciously ignoring the point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I've been there. I've been in the position where I'm like, actually, no, like, here's everything that you said that contradicts everything you're currently saying. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you did this and this and this. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Watching this it's Midsommar has become, you know, I've already talked about the healing part and all of that, but like, there are still moments in this where I get triggered, thankfully, not put back into like a PTSD state, thankfully. I've gotten a
Mm-hmm.
lot better with that, but it just makes me angry. Like, at
Yeah.
this point, it's just an anger response in me.
Yeah. I feel that.
So he goes on the defensive, and it makes her like start grabbing for him, saying she's like, I'm not mad, and he's like, well, I feel like you're attacking me right now. I feel attacked. I feel like you're really upset, and maybe I should just go. And this was also, I've been directly in her shoes in this moment.
Absolutely.
So many times.
Yeah.
And yeah, he goes full victim mode, putting it back on her, saying he's the victim, he's being attacked, and that maybe she should just go. And then she's like, no, please don't leave, please don't leave. Like, he is the only person she has left.
And he knows.
I mean, we heard her friend on the phone, but we don't know where they're at, what's going on there. But so yeah, it's like she's not only trying to like hold on to like him as her boyfriend, but also just like he's a body, he's another person, he's the only other person that she has any kind of connection with.
Yeah,
And
he's the only thing that she has as a constant now that everything else is gone. So he's dangling that.
Yeah. So yeah, he's consciously trying to remove the one thing he knows that Danny needs, and therefore putting the control back in his hands.
Yep.
He starts to like sit down with her, or she tries to bring him over to the couch, be like, just come sit with me, just like come talk to me. I just want to talk to you. And so now she's very shrinking herself down to be like, no, I'm not trying to attack you, please. And it's really sad to witness. And then they start talking about the trip. Like, oh, are you going for your thesis? Like, so now she's trying to like spin it back around, be like, make it a positive conversation. Like, what are you going for? And then he's like, I don't know what I'm doing for my thesis yet. I'm not sure. And she's like, well, then maybe it will be good, right? Maybe it'll give you inspiration. Like, she's just trying to drag anything out of this man, and he gives her fucking nothing. So we cut to another day, and the four guys are all hanging out together, and Christian gets a text, then gets up and tells them, oh, hey guys, Danny's coming up. And now in this moment, once more, we are seeing his reflection. Like, all of the guys are seated on this couch, and they've got like books, and they've got like weed out and whatever. But yeah, so Christian gets up and he walks over to the door, and we see him in like a mirror again. So only talking through his reflection. I love this.
Yeah.
And he then tells them, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I invited Danny on the trip, but she's not actually going to come. And they all just kind of sit there confused, like, this is supposed to be a guy's trip, and you just invited your girlfriend.
And then saying, but she's not going to come.
He's like, oh no, yeah, I invited her, but she's not actually coming. And they are visibly like so trying to work through this. Like, what the fuck logic are you trying to pull in the right now? Like, what are you talking about? As if Christian like makes the decisions for her. Like, she has no autonomy to say like, yes, I'll go. So fuck, like and then he even further says, yeah, I invited her and she accepted, but she's not actually coming.
Yeah, like what?
What? He speaks in nonsense words. Every line that comes out of his mouth is contradictory.
He has no spine, and he has no single thought of his own.
No, he's compulsive liar. Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
To the point that it's like the lies that you hear where they're talking so much and digging themselves such a big hole that as soon as you like poke a hole in it in their little bubble or whatever, then they start trying to plug it up with all these different things, and you're like, well, now you're just spiraling. They lied. Yeah. So he has the audacity to tell them, was like, well, as far as Danny knows, you all invited her, and you all know she's coming. God. See, this is why Christian in the latter half of this movie is so like conflicting to watch, because you're just like, yeah, fuck you. But then you're like, you're still a human. And that's really fucked up. So there's just, it's great writing. It's really, yeah, it's wonderful writing, not what happens. So as soon as she enters the room, the energy changes. And I mean, it had already changed as soon as Christian said something, but now he's
like
allowing
tangible.
Danny to, he's allowing her to step into this awkward energy that he created by putting the blame on her.
Yeah.
And not taking accountability once again for himself. So they ask if she's coming, and she's like, yeah, as long as it doesn't like ruin your plans. And of course they're like, oh, yeah, no, it's fine, you're not ruining anything. And like, she's awkward, they're awkward, it's very fake and weird. It's very relatable. It's so relatable to like the amount of college parties I went to at my ex's dorm that I knew I was not wanted there.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, mostly because of the lies he was telling them about me and the ways he was, you know, twisting my actions to make it seem like I was crazy. Like, I know exactly the vibes in that moment.
Yeah.
So Mark and Christian leaves the room. He's like, oh, can I get you to look at this paragraph for a second? And then he almost leaves without his laptop. So it's like, yeah, because you totally want to talk about your thesis right now. And so Danny goes to sit down next to Pele, and he's sketching something and then like puts it away real quick. And then he starts talking to Danny. As they're kind of talking, Josh then leaves the room. And I never caught this detail before, but he leaves the room to like microwave his coffee. And it threw me back to my babysitter from when I was like an infant through like, you know, elementary school, that me and my sisters, she watched all of us, and she would do that all the time. Like she smelled of stale coffee and cigarettes, and she would microwave her cup of coffee that was from probably 8 o'clock that morning. And just the coffee stains within the cup. If Erin, I know you're listening, and I'm sure you're dying laughing right now listening to me talk about Mary. And maybe even Sarah too. My other sister might be listening as well. But yeah, just that detail. I was like, oh man, that brought me back.
Yeah.
So Pele explains that they're going to the Swedish countryside for his family's 9-day celebration. And Danny refers to it as a commune. He's like, oh, we're a small community. So he's already trying to direct. He's like, we're not a cult.
Yep.
Totally not a cult.
What's the first rule of a cult? Say we're not a cult.
It's just like Fight Club. He then shows her pictures from festivals past. And so she sees like everyone wearing handmade dresses. They're all white dresses. And he also shows her a photo of the May Queen, who is wearing a crown of flowers, and tells her he's really glad that she's coming. And he is the only one that tells her this. And it's genuine. You feel it between the two of them that he's glad that she's coming.
Yeah, he's the only character so far out of that group of guys, except for Josh. Josh isn't horrible, but Pele, he's the first one that you're like, oh, like she's actually being shown some kindness.
Yeah. Made to feel welcome.
Yeah.
And then he, you know, says, oh, you know, I never got a chance to tell you. I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. And then tries to like level with her, or like, you know, relate to her and let her know she's not alone. He's like, I lost my parents too when I was really young. And then so this kind of sets Danny off, and she starts kind of getting emotional, overwhelmed. And then she's like, I gotta go. I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. No, I'm fine. And then we get my all-time favorite shot in this movie. After I saw this movie, you could not get me to shut up about this shot. And it's I can't do it justice describing it, but we follow Danny as from like a bird's eye view, and we're above her. And so we see her walk through the door opens, and then we see her walk into the bedroom or the bathroom. And then as the door shuts, it's a quick cut, and she's in an airplane bathroom.
Yeah.
And the seamlessness and the way that they were able to make the bathroom lighting in the apartment look similar to the bathroom lighting in an airplane made the transition very jarring, but also natural. And it's, oh my God, I love filmmaking. Like, this is also why I love A24 so much. It's like the way that they do their cinematography and the way things look. It's just, you don't get that very often with these big companies, except for like John Wick. John Wick 4 has that kind of shot, and it made me goosh in my pants. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, it got me horny.
I'm a slut for cinematography.
I really am. I need that on a shirt. Slut for cinematography.
But no, that's one of the beautiful things about A24 is everything is done with intention.
Yes.
Everything. In all of the A24 films I've seen, you could sit there and write dissertations on every single scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Every frame, like The Lighthouse is another one that just sticks in my brain.
Which one?
As The Lighthouse.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, with Robert Pattinson and, oh my god, Willem Dafoe.
Okay.
It's really, really, really good. I got Sarah from Ireland to watch it with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we watched it together, like over in Amrins or something. We were both
so
watching
sweet.
it. Because she's like, oh, because, yeah, she likes Lighthouses, all this, whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, you gotta watch The Lighthouse, and you like horror movies, we gotta watch it. She was horrified. She's like, why did you make me watch this? She's like, what the fuck was that?
You're like, and welcome.
And I just sit here like tapping my fingers like hee 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 hee.
You and I are gonna be like gremlins.
Anyone that I am able to get my horror hooks into, I drag them in. Like I will. You give me one little like bit, I will hook my finger in there. Yep. You say, oh, you like that kind of vibe? Here, I got a horror movie for that.
Got you. I got a rec for you.
That's why I love Sinners so much. It's like, okay, if a lot of people are watching Sinners and they're loving Sinners, guess what? You like vampire movies. Guess what? That means you can probably handle zombie movies, and then we expand from there. Like, I
am having Zach take me to see it this week. So
I'm so excited.
We will be able. Yes. So I'm very excited. I will be in touch with you as soon as I see it.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, please. Oh, I'm so excited. So anyway, so it cuts to Danny in a bathroom, just absolutely in tears. So we know that at this point they are on their way to Sweden.
Mm-hmm. So between the party scene and up to the scene where she's in the bathroom, it's very symbolic of grief, of life is just it's going to keep moving on, whether you're ready or not. So I did think it was, very significant that she's not only doing life, but she's going to another country, right? Like she's completely leaving. And some people advise not to make major decisions within 3 months of grief, like not buying or selling a house and not doing et cetera, et cetera. But I think in this case, it was good for her to go.
I don't think so. Based on where we're gonna go, don't think that was a good choice. Because granted, now if she was going with a group of people that she was safe with, I think it would be much different. But where she is already, it has already been established that she is not comfortable with these people. Like there's some animosity between her and Mark, so they don't talk. Like anytime that she's nearby or she comes up, he gets annoyed. So
yeah, that is true, because
it's not the vibes to be traveling with at all.
Yeah, I guess.
And like her one kind of point of positivity is going with Pele, and this is like he's going home. So it's she's it's still very isolating.
I'll try it. I'm just trying to find the one little
poor Danny. I know. It's like she gets a couple little moments here as we get in. We'll make sure we're highlighting them.
Yeah.
So she's clearly still struggling, having a tough time, and goes back to her seat. And then once again, we get the camera zooming into her and Christian. I keep wanting to say Christian, like Rahul Kohli says it in Midnight Mass, Christian.
Oh, yeah.
But he's talking about the religion, Christian.
Yeah.
But I keep wanting to say it that way because I watch Midnight Mass so fucking much. So we zoom in on them and then out the window again. But I thought it was a really cool detail that as we get out of the plane window to kind of see the landscape more clearly, the camera starts to shake and vibrate with the turbulence outside the plane. And then it cuts. And I'm like, ooh, just all these little things that I'm now thinking about more in depth about how I'm like, the shaky camera, things are getting very unsteady. Like we're treading into some very unsteady territory. Like It's just, I fucking love this movie.
Yeah.
So now they're in Sweden, and Mark, as they're driving along, Mark is just like, as they pass by, he's like, oh my God, all the women here are so hot.
All that he talks about. That's all
It's
that he talks about. Yeah.
All he talks about is wanting to fuck the Swedish women. And he's like, how are all the women so hot here? And then Josh goes into the historical aspect, saying that the Vikings dragged all of the, quote, hot women to Sweden when they were conquering places. And it's like, so it's really, I like that these little moments of dialogue that we're getting are giving us cool glimpses into like how these characters behave in the world. So like, as we know, Mark is like the jokester. He wants to just fuck everybody. And then there's Josh, who is very scholarly. He's very analytical. He looks through everything with that kind of analytical lens. He's always kind of in the brain space. And so the camera is now on the car outside of the car, following it from behind. And then we get another bird's eye view where the camera lifts up and over the top of the car so that we're kind of like looking down on it. But then it goes around the front of the car so that we're looking at it upside down. And then like, or we're looking at the road upside down ahead of them. And like we're driving, and it's just so disorienting because it doesn't like continue flipping. It stays upside down for at least 10 seconds. It's gotta be. It makes me nauseous, honestly. Like any kind of rotating camera effect like that, where it's a very slow shift in perspective. Oh, it gives me vertigo. But I just thought that was just really, really cool. But just further, like their world is turning upside down. They are going into some place that they have zero context for.
They are going down the rabbit hole.
Very true. And then we eventually see the sign for the festival. And after we pass the sign for the festival, the camera pans up to the sky, twists around, and then back to the road, and we're right side up again. So very interesting. And I'm sure that there's a lot more analytical people that would go into the symbolism of that. But I feel like we've covered the base level of it.
Yeah.
So they arrive at a field, which is scattered with people. They're all kind of just like hanging out in groups. And it's beautiful. The sky is blue. There's a little bit of cloud cover. The field is just tall with flowers. It's very serene. And they go to then meet these other people from his village that have traveled out of the country. So we're already learning that the Harga has people that, you know, they will send out into the world to make friends with, you know, people of those countries that they're going to visit, to bring them back to experience this festival. So it's very interesting. So we meet Pele's, he says brother, Ingmar, but then he says they've been best friends since infancy. So we think like brother on the, like Castile and Kieran are brothers, you know?
Yeah.
And Ingmar has brought friends from London who are Simon and Connie. So they've all just taken some mushrooms, and they're like, oh yeah, you guys want to take some? We just took some. And Danny's kind of unsure. She's like, I'm not gonna do it yet. I want to get my footing. And it's like, good choice. Good choices. And then Christian has a moment of like actual understanding, it seems like, where he's like, you don't have to do it at all if you're not comfortable. And it's like, what? Who are you?
Yeah.
Who's this? But also like, good on you, Danny. Please don't take the psychedelics in the mental space that you're in. I don't think that's the greatest choice at this moment. But, you know, so she decides not to. And then Christian then tells all of his friends, like, oh, I'm actually going to wait to do them with Danny so that they come up together. And then they're like, no, you got to take them with all of us as a big group, because then we all come up together. Otherwise, we're going to have different trips. And now I speak on this just verbatim from the movie because I have zero. The most psychedelic drug I've done is weed. So, like, I am very much, I've never done any of this. And so when Christian says this, they kind of are like, no. But then Danny caves, and she's like, no, I'll do it. You do it. You can do it with your friends. I'll do it. You don't have to wait for me. And it's just like, oh my God, no, Danny, no. Yeah. You know, your heart breaks because she was able to make a decision for herself and stick to it. And then once again, just totally caving to appease them. And it's unfortunate. Because
she even, you know, she makes eye contact with Mark after he makes that comment about how, you know, we won't all come up together. And so, yeah, that tension that we have between her and Mark that we felt this entire film, she does it out of spite of not of feeling pressured and not wanting to make both Christian upset for not coming up with his friends and then Mark upset, for the same reason. And as someone that does have experience in that field, this is like the absolute worst thing that you can do to someone because these substances are so delicate. So she's going to go into the headspace, which we're going to get into deeper as we go on. But I'll just say for now, going into that mindset with all of her grief and then feeling the pressure is like a setup for failure. So as someone that has been in that exact situation, is like a visceral enraging reaction of just like, no.
Yeah. Like peer pressure on like an entirely different level.
And yeah, absolutely.
So she drinks a mushroom tea while the rest eat up.
By the way, the taste is absolutely rancid.
I can imagine, like, even just smelling store-bought mushrooms that don't make you trip. Yeah. I'm like, can't wait to cook this up with some butter and steak so that I can't taste what these actually taste like. And I love that Ingmar offers her tea like, oh, if you don't prefer the taste, we made a tea. As if that takes away the taste.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way that works.
Yeah, it helps. It definitely helps because the texture is awful. But I'm sure, like, you know what? At least she's getting the better end of the deal here. Okay.
True. Very true. But yeah, no, I forgot that there is that little bit where her and Mark trade lines where Mark's like, are you sure? And she's like, yes, Mark, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, they have that little back and forth.
Such an ass.
Yeah. So cutting to later, they're all tripping and Mark's freaking out. And this is one of the really great comedic moments because like it's still light out and he goes, what time is it? And they're like, I don't know, like 8 p.m. He's like, why is there still light out? And he's like, oh, why is it like that? And we're just like, it's Sweden.
It's such a real moment too. I just have to say that from the psychedelic aspect, that entire interaction, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, and then he's just like, everyone lie down. And then you see him lie down, but then he keeps putting his head back up. He's like, why aren't you guys lying down? Someone lie down with me.
It's so fucking funny.
It's really funny. And once again, that's just Will Poulter is just he has great comedic timing. So as they're all tripping, Pele starts talking, like trying to calm him down. He's like, no, just like, he gets very like, I don't know, your stereotypical stoner vibey kind of speech.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, just like listen to the earth and the energy coming up from the earth. And so Danny starts to tune into this. And then she looks down. This would have sent me into a fucking spiral. This is why I know I cannot do psychedelics like this. So she looks down to see that grass is like growing out of her hand. And then we hear Pele say, look, the trees, they're breathing. And then she looks up, and from like a cinematography aspect, granted, like I said, I don't know what it looks like to do mushrooms and look at these kind of textures, but I feel like it's very clearly portrayed as to what it could look like.
It is.
And of course, this is where, you have that, knowledge for it.
Blew my mind. Someone that worked on this film has definitely tripped because it had to have. When I was watching it, I was like, no fucking way. Yeah. Like I had not seen, I've seen like, like party films and stuff like, that plainly depict it, but they captured it so perfect. So yes, that is very, very much what the beginning stages. Everything starts breathing and yeah.
Yeah, like the bark almost looks like it's fluid and like moving down the tree, and then there's little spots all within the tree that you watch, and like the leaves and the branches are expanding and contracting like lungs. It's so subtle, but as soon as you see it, you
can't unsee it
everywhere in this movie, everywhere. So Danny like kind of snaps to really quickly, and she starts to hear singing. And she just kind of like abruptly stands up and she's like, I gotta go for a walk. And people are like, do you want us to come with you? And she's like, nope, I'm fine. I just gotta go for a walk. So she starts walking to this group and she's kind of speaking to herself, talking herself through this, where her kind of thoughts are probably starting to go. because you hear her saying, like, don't think like that, it's almost your birthday, you're fine, you're fine. And then this would have sent me into a spiral, even just being stoned. The group of people turn around and look at her and start laughing at her.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I wouldn't even have to be stoned. I would just see that, and
absolutely,
I would break down. I'd be like, why are you laughing at me?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So she, like, switches directions and then sees Ingmar, and, like, they have a brief interaction. She's like, they were laughing at me. They're like, they've been laughing. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, no, they looked directly at me and laughed. So they feel like that's different. And then, but she continues on past him, and she just, like, keeps telling herself, you're fine. Stop it, stop it, stop it. And so then she eventually starts running and runs into a shed and then closes the door. It's all dark inside. And then she lights a match in front of a mirror. We get our first, like, jump scare, and behind her, she briefly sees the reflection of her sister with the duct tape on her mouth, and then Danny turns around, sees nothing, and the match goes out, and then she lights another match, and now Danny's own reflection looks like she's melting. And I'm like, God, terrifying. And then quick cut, she is sprinting out of that shed, and it's like, that's right. You run from that.
Little psychedelic lore fact, fun fact, that's like a universal rule, is to not look in the mirror, because and I guess in the spiritual world too, mirrors are thought to be portals, right? So for me, on like the filming level, like the artistic level, again, they are like they have intention with everything that they do. So I'm like, she's got the portal where she's seeing her sister and then seeing herself. I just, crazy.
So she sprints through the forest, and then they cut to black. So it's like, we don't know what happens, but it's just boom, done. Like, that scene's over.
Yeah.
And then we see a brief dream of her parents in bed with her sister, like, looking at her. And then Danny wakes up on the ground, like Christian's waking her up. And I tried to figure out what this dream was kind of leaning towards or pointing at, and I honestly couldn't figure it out. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah.
I really wanted to try to see if there was, like, and I'm sure there is, I'm just not seeing it. As far as, like, what other meaning that could have for them or for her. But I think, like you just said, you know, with the mirror and the portal, I wouldn't doubt it if that just kind of sent her brain in that kind of way, and so now she's seeing them.
And especially being under the influence of mushrooms, which when you do that, you're completely opening your psyche, right? So her having passed out, it could be interpreted as, you know, she visited them on another realm.
True.
You know.
So she's been asleep for hours, and everyone around her is packed up, and that would have just, it would have made me feel so bad if I were her. I would have felt so awkward.
Yeah.
And then she asks, is it tomorrow? And Christian says, well, yeah, from yesterday's perspective. And I really like just those two lines. I thought they were really cool in how they were worded, because Christian always looks at something from his own perspective. So of course he's not going to say yes. He would say, well, from yesterday's perspective. It's like, any chance he can get to just not say something for himself.
Yeah.
And then we're bird's eye viewing again, and we hear flutes playing while everyone walks down the path and through the woods. And then we get another really great Mark moment.
Yeah.
Where he starts freaking out about all of the bugs and ticks, while his friends start, like, freaking him out. Like, you know, Christian's like, oh yeah, Sweden actually has a tick problem. And then Josh goes like, oh yeah, my grandparents died of ticks. Like, as if that's a cause of death. Not like the tick giving someone a disease that then, you know, puts them in a health position and then kills them, but just like, oh, my grandparents died of ticks. Mark's freaking out. He's like, well, actually, my uncle has Lyme. So, you know, don't tell me about ticks. Once again, Will Poulter, excellent comedic role here. We also see throughout the movie, I didn't notice this. I noticed it a little bit, but I didn't bring as much attention to it. But throughout this movie, you will see that he has his pants tucked into his socks. Like what you're supposed to do when you go camping and stuff, to make sure that the bugs don't crawl up your legs.
Yeah.
So the entire movie, anytime you see him outside, his pants are tucked into his socks.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because he's petrified of the ticks. God forbid you bring bug spray. And so they arrive to the compound, and honestly, it is beautiful. It's very, like, it's a serene kind of scene here. There's flutes being played and serenading them. It's very peaceful. There's just like a few buildings, you know, around the compound, and this place is called Harga, with the Harga. I think it's just the Harga is the group of people that live here. And everyone is dressed in white linen clothing that they make themselves. And then all of the guests are brought strings of a plant that Danny says are strawberries. So I'm imagining there's some kind of naturally occurring strawberries and not our genetically modified strawberries that we buy at the supermarket, because they're on this little string and they look really, really cute, honestly. I'm like, ooh, I kind of want a string of strawberries like that. That's pretty. Pele introduces them to Father Odd, who's odd. And he welcomes them all, then tells Danny, though, welcome home. I caught that. He's like, to Josh, Mark, and Christian, he goes, oh, welcome, 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 gives Danny a hug and says, welcome home.
It's another it's another cult tactic.
Okay.
Immediately make you feel like no judgment and that they've been waiting for you.
Okay. See, I love that I'm getting your insights here, because I picked up on it as just like, oh yeah, that's really good foreshadowing, but you're just like, actually, it goes deeper than that.
It goes deeper.
So Father Odd tells him that his frock is made in honor of Ymir. And so I didn't go too heavily into the researching of this kind of stuff, because of course this is a movie. It's not based on reality, but there's definitely real elements. So just to get more context from Wikipedia here, Ymir is the father of the race of giants in Norse mythology and the grandfather of Odin, king of the gods. Just kind of a cool little detail about where they're drawing their source material from. Yeah. Josh mentions like another tribe from another culture doing something similar, like trying to strike up a conversation. He's like, oh, you know, I think these people in this culture do something similar. And Father Odd just kind of looks at him and he's like, okay, anyway, you know, and I'm going to bring up later as far as like themes of white supremacy throughout this movie. And this is definitely one of those times where Father Odd just like, it could be looked at as like, they are completely cut off from civilization. Why do you think they would know about these other cultures? But also just the fact that the way he looks at him and then completely doesn't even warrant the statement or question with an answer. He's just like, all right. And then he just pretty much walks away. And that's the end of that. So it's like, that's fucking weird. So the whole group approaches a small stage and an elder welcomes them. Her name is Siv. So she says that it's been 90 years since their last great feast and will be another 90 years until the next. Now, I want everyone to pay attention to the number 9 in this movie. I did not realize there was a pattern until I looked into the trivia of said movie, and it's a very cool detail. So everyone takes a drink, and there's a quick cut to someone who we just see their face, so they look like they have some kind of facial deformity going on. So this person is like painting something, but we don't really see what it is. And then we cut back, and these two older group members are like given these torches. They're going through some sort of ceremony. And then it cuts to a girl who is looking at herself in a mirror and is fixing her hair. And then she does a very like iconic breathing pattern where they exhale and then inhale really quickly, and they just go, it's really like, what are you doing? Yeah. What's that?
Breath work.
The breath work, yeah. So she exits the cabin and then directly makes eyes with Christian. There's also some kids nearby playing, and there's a chain of people holding hands that are running and dancing around the field. So Simon asks, oh, what are those kids playing? And Ingmar says, oh, they're playing Skin the Fool. It's like, I'd say that's a weird game for kids, but we literally used to play games like Bloody Mary and Red Rover. Yeah. Like, come on. Yeah. Like, what was the other one? Oh, even Ring Around the Rosie. Yeah. Talking about the Black Plague. We didn't know that, but we're singing about the Black Plague. Like, yeah. You could say it's really weird, but is it? And fun fact about Red Rover, that got banned from my elementary school because too many kids were getting hurt when we were playing.
Did it really?
Yep. That and the snap bracelets.
Oh, yeah.
Kids were snapping people left and right with the bracelets.
Yeah. At my school, whenever we'd play Foursquare outside, there was a couple kids that would come and like spike it in the middle, smack people in the face.
I hated those kids. I could never play Foursquare because of that. I sucked at Foursquare. So Christian gets kicked by the girl that we mentioned that was like fixing her hair in the mirror. And she's kind of running around with the people that are like holding hands. And Christian like immediately looks to Pele. He's like, "Can anyone join in on that?" And Pele's like, "You're an American. Just jam yourself right in there." If that ain't the truth, Pele.
Yeah.
That ain't the truth.
For real.
So Christian and I think like Josh also get up and kind of go join in. And Pele then gives Danny a sketch of herself and says like, "Oh, happy birthday." He wishes her a happy birthday. So he remembered. Mm-hmm. She says thank you. And then she says, yeah, Christian, he forgot, but it's really my fault. I didn't remind him.
Yeah.
He shouldn't need a reminder, Danny. It's your birthday.
And also to mention, the drawing that Pele did for her is gorgeous. It's not so just good. Like a simple drawing. It's like a detailed, like admiration.
Yeah. And so we also understand now, like, that was what he was sketching back at the apartment. So later on, the group is going for a walk. And when I'm saying the group, I mean, so Pele, Ingmar, and their respective foreigners. Yeah. So we got the Londoners and the Americans traveling with Pele and Ingmar. And they're showing them around, and then they see like this massive rune stone. And then Josh, once again, using his like intellect, he tries to strike up conversation, being like, trying to guess the language that it's written in, like what kind of runes they are to prove like how smart he is. But he's ultimately incorrect. And they're like, "Oh no, that's this language. It's elder. It's like an elder rune or something. Elder Harga. I don't know." And he's like, oh. It's like, "Yeah, you don't know everything, bro." And then Connie asks Danny how long her and Christian have been together, and he says, "Oh, it's 3.5 years." And Danny's like, it's 4. It's gonna be 4 in 2 weeks. So I guess he just can't remember any kind of dates for shit.
Yeah.
You know? And I can't remember dates either. But you know what I do remember? My anniversary and my husband's birthday.
Yeah.
Definitely remember those.
So two significant events very quick. Her birthday, or close together. Her birthday and then their anniversary coming up in 2 weeks.
Very true. Christian asks Ingmar how he met Simon and Connie. And then Ingmar says that, "Oh, well, me and Connie were dating when I first became friends with Simon." And Connie's like, "We weren't dating. We'd been on a date." And he goes, "Oh, yeah. I just meant, we were friendly." So like, even him as another man continuing to bend the truth to make themselves look better. Like, these men are constantly like, oh, what's the word? Show pony's not the right word. Grandstanding or something like that. Like, they're just constantly being like, "Oh, well, I was dating you first." And I'm like, listen, I make the joke constantly that I dated one of my husband's best friends, but we were in literally middle school. I'm like, "Oh yeah, we dated for 2 whole weeks." I'm like, yeah, I say it sarcastically. This man tried with his whole chest to be like, "Oh yeah, we were dating."
Yeah.
She's like, "We went out once, actually." And then we find out that Connie and Simon are actually engaged. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we actually asked Ingmar to officiate the wedding." And it's like, cool, I guess. Neat. Then Christian asks about what this building is that we see off in the distance. And it's like this A-frame triangular building that has been painted a bright yellow. And Pele says that it's like a sacred temple kind of thing. No one's allowed in. So they split up, Pele with the US people, Ingmar with the UK people. And the UK friends see a big bear in a cage. And they're just like, "Are we going to talk about the bear?" And Ingmar's like, "What about it? It's a bear."
Yeah, like,
bro, you have normal. A caged bear in the middle of this field. What the fuck's going on? Yeah. What do you mean it's no biggie? There's a bear.
My flags raised up, all of them raised up the minute I saw the bear. I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, it's like, well, and it's also really sad, but it's a really small cage. Like, the bear is just sitting down in there. Like, it can barely even move. So it's very sad in that aspect as well. And so Simon and Connie are looking at this tapestry and ask Ingmar what it is. And he says it's a love story. And we see it shown from right to left, and it's depicting a girl looking at and dreaming about a man, and then she's cutting her pubes, cooks them into food, and then menstruates into a cup and then feeds it to the man. Gross. Then the man is shown becoming hypnotized, and then they're in love. It's like, okay, so clearly that's some kind of telling of some kind of like love spell or whatever.
Yeah.
Love story, he calls it, as this man is brainwashed into being with this woman.
Mm-hmm.
Cutting back to the US group, they enter the sleeping quarters and see like the walls in all of these buildings are covered in sketches and drawings and runes depicting a ton of different stuff that I imagine is from, the Harga, culture of what they've kind of created here. And Pele explains that the Harga believe that all lives are measured in seasons. So this is where we're mentioning the number 9 again. So until they're 18, when they come of age, they call that spring. So that's 9 times 2 is 18. Then they go on their pilgrimage between 18 and 36, which is summer. 36, 9 times 3. So that's summer. And then 36 to 54 is a laborer, 9 times 4. That's fall. Then 54 to 72 is when they become mentors, or winter. So then we get 9 times 8, 6. So it's like 9 times 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like, it's really cool how it's split up there.
All the numerology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a very interesting way of like looking at life and a life cycle. I've never seen that depicted that way. And he asks, what happens after 72? And then Pele makes like this joking, like finger across the throat kind of joking motion. And she just kind of laughs it off and then finds a wall of portraits of women in flower crowns. And these are the May Queens, who are, he describes, the winners of a dance competition. And then this woman comes in, and this is so fucking weird.
It is.
She comes in and tells them all like, oh, the kids are watching Austin Powers.
It's
if
very
you want to
random.
Come join.
It's very random.
Of all movies. And like, there's got to be a reason they chose Austin Powers. There's got to be. And I want to know why.
I know. I was racking my brain about it this morning. Like, why on earth? It's a parody about a spy.
Yeah.
And there's some sharks with laser beams on their forehead, and you've got Dr. Evil. You've got, So,
yeah. I mean, I guess you could see it from their point of view, but it doesn't even make sense. Like, their goal is not to take over the world. So it doesn't even make sense. Like, yeah, it's just like, it's just very jarring. And I'm like, there's got to be a reason, but I don't know why.
Definitely came from left field.
Yeah.
I wonder if the writers, they're like, we're going to throw this in here and make people like me and you think that there's some deep symbolism. And they're like, no, we're just throwing it in there.
Yeah. It's like, no, we had to pick a movie for them to watch.
Yeah.
And so this woman, as she's leaving, kind of gives Mark like fuck me eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
And of course, Mark being the one that just wants to fuck everything in sight.
Jesus.
This another funny ass moment. He goes, he's like, who is that? And Pele's like, oh, it's Inga. And he goes, oh my God, I want to give her a bath. So specific. Not I want to kiss her, not I want to hug her, I want to touch her. I want to give her a bath.
It's so random.
And if that isn't just so on brand with all the books that we've been covering.
Yeah.
All the characters are giving each other's baths. So it's very intimate. And it's like, okay, interesting choice, Mark. So Christian pulls Danny outside, and then to her surprise, he lights a candle on a slice of some kind of cake, and then he sings happy birthday while failing to light the candle and apologizes for forgetting her birthday. He says, I'm so sorry for forgetting the drugs. I was like so messed up. And then like the daylight, I lost track of what day it was. I'm like, no, you actually forgot, because we do see a brief shot in the scene previous when he's talking to Pele about the ages and the life cycle of the Harga. You see Pele telling Christian something, and Christian looks visibly bothered. Like he looks like, oh fuck, I fucked up. Like, he's got his head in his hands, like, oh, shit. And I'm like, it's because you forgot her fucking birthday. So that was Pele telling him, hey, by the way, it's your girlfriend's birthday. So then I'm further wondering, well, where'd you get the cake, Christian? And I bet you anything Pele had that shit waiting. Bet you anything. And it's also very interesting that behind them is a group of women that are holding what we assume is a newborn baby, and they're just kind of like rocking back and forth while Danny celebrates her birthday. So I just thought it was a very interesting shot in the way that that was structured. Then it's quote nighttime, but it's daylight still outside. So they draw some blackout curtains and I'll go to sleep. Before they fall asleep, Pele says, "Tomorrow is the first of the ceremonies." Then Josh asks, "Which one?" And Pele says, "A testuba." And Josh looks visibly shocked by this. And meanwhile, Danny and Christian are like, "Well, what's that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's hard to explain." And then Josh says, "An actual one?" It's like, so you fucking know what this is. So while Christian pulls out his phone to try to look it up, it's like, yeah, because they got great Wi-Fi out in Harga. It just like, I like that moment where Christian relies on anyone and anything around him to like be informed. Just like he came here supposedly wanting to like, we'll find out soon, has this idea of working on a thesis out here about the Harga, could not have been bothered to do a speck of research. But the thing is like, Josh is a complete ass in this moment because they can see that he knows what Pele is talking about.
Yeah, he even smirks at them.
Yeah, he refuses to tell Danny and Christian what it is. He's just like, "You'll see.
I know something you don't know."
Yeah. And the fact that the thing that he knows that he refuses to tell them, what a shit fucking move.
Yeah.
Absolute dick behavior.
Especially, yeah.
So the next day, Danny and everybody else gather at a very interesting looking table in the shape of a rune. And I don't know what the rune is or what that means, but it's a very interesting, like, diamond shape at the top that crosses and they, like,
yeah,
go down.
I meant to look it up. The only thing that I can think of is a fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I meant to look into that more before we started this because I was really interested in their layout.
Yeah, and I know that there's probably so much detail that went into the runes that are drawn on certain things and what they mean, and like I wish that we had the time to divulge and really like go into it. But you know, I like where you're going with the fish, though. That's cool. So there's a group of girls gathering flowers in front of them while they walk backwards, and then Mark just makes an offhand comment. There's like, "Hey, they're walking weird." Well, good observation, Mark. Well done. Good. And that's it. They don't elaborate. They're just like, "Hey, those girls are walking weird."
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone is standing at the table until the two elders from the day before that were holding those torches, they approach and sit at the head. And they're also wearing like a different kind of garb than everybody else. They're wearing like these blue kind of outfits. And Josh asks Pele if those are the ones, and Pele confirms. So like, Josh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Mark sees the same woman, Inga, that he spotted the day before. They continue making eyes at each other. And a woman then next to Danny is holding a baby and tells her that the babies are raised by everyone in the community. So she talks about like something about not disconnecting, but the separation, like getting the child used to separation. And she's like, that's why we all take a hand in raising all of the children here. It's like, interesting. Very basic cult kind of
I was going to say more cult and pour it on the cult cake.
So those two elders are speaking and they're chanting in their language. They're kind of doing that same breathing pattern, and everyone stands as they kind of cheers each other. And the woman elder kind of looks like she's crying or trying not to cry. And the man looks very like solemn while they're kind of looking at each other. So they have a moment here where they're both like, it's not terror, but it's not peace either. It's just kind of knowing. And it's very eerie. So then they sit in two chairs and are carried away by others. So they're not walking themselves, they're being carried while they're sitting. We cut to some new scenery. It's a cliffside with the community members all gathered on the ground. Then the elders are carried to the top of the cliff, and it's really cool and something that I didn't notice until I watched this movie a couple times. You can see on the cliff is scattered with all of these rune stones, and you can actually see bloody stains on them from years past of what's about to happen. And so Josh sees the lead woman, Siv. She's reading from the book called The Ruby Rotter, which is the Harga scripture. He asks Pele if he can read it, and Pele's like, no. Well, first of all, you're not allowed. Second, you wouldn't be able to read it. Like, it's not in a language you would know. And so we cut back up to the elders whose hands are cut, and then they kind of put them on the runestone and drag their hands down, so it leaves like bloody handprints in their wake. And if you can't tell what's about to happen, gonna have a trigger warning here. So we cut to Dani on the ground, and she's looking up, and her wheels are turning. It's a very interesting thing where you can tell that she has suspicions about what is about to happen. And the woman's first, and she steps to the edge, and there's a really great cut moment where the music that's playing very low in the background, very foreboding, cuts. Dani gasps and grabs Christian's arm, and then the woman jumps and splats on the ground dead. And it's just like, because we all can understand what's about to happen too. Like, you see two people being brought up to a cliffside, there's really only one way this is going to go. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're kind of along with Dani while these other people, like Christian's, still pretty oblivious to what's about to happen. And unfortunately, this woman jumps and is dead. Dani is just in shock. Connie and Simon are freaking out, and there's a great shot of this woman next to Simon while he's freaking the fuck out. She's looking at him like, what's up with this guy?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Because to them, this is normal. To everyone else, the foreigners in the situation,
it's
not normal.
I know.
Christian kind of looks like he's about to be sick, but he's still looking. And then the man steps up. And then we see Simon, like, pleading with this man, like, someone stop him, like, sir, don't jump. Yeah. And then, it's so, I want to know if this is deliberate on the man's part. He jumps, but just steps off, going straight down, landing on his feet, and his legs shatter. It's disgusting. Mm-hmm. And this man is still alive. Like, he's fucked up, and he's moaning in pain. But, like, I need to know if this is something like, is this supposed to be the way that it's done? Or did he just do this and fuck it up? Yeah. Like, and make it harder for himself? Like, I have no idea. But regardless, the crowd of people start kind of moaning and screaming with him to kind of carry over his own voice. And then a group of like 3 or 4 people go over with this massive fucking mallet and smash his head in one after the other, killing him. And this scene is so graphic and nasty.
It is.
And direct. Like, the mallet coming down on this man's face, and it doesn't even move. Like, it's just because it's bone, and just, it's visceral. Like,
so if anyone is listening that has not watched this movie, but is now interested in watching it, we will do you the justice of letting you know that this scene is very graphic.
It's insanely graphic.
Yeah. Because both of us going into it had no idea that is how that was going to pan out. And I was like, you know, it is A24, so you're prepared for anything, really. But I was like, shit.
Yeah. Because, you know, watching the woman jump,
wasn't
very
bad.
Wide. It's a wide shot. You do get, you know what, though? You do get a close-up of her landing on the rock she lands on and bouncing off.
Yeah.
That's really fucking gross, and her head's, like, almost gone. But yeah, it's disgusting. And I get squeamish over gore, but I never have to be like, I can't look, unless it's something like a body horror. Yeah. When it's stuff like Saw, things like that, Gerald's Game, I watched it once. I will never fucking watch that movie again solely because of the degloving.
I haven't watched it. I don't think that I will.
It's an excellent movie.
Is it?
Excellent Mike Flanagan movie.
Yeah.
And Carlo Gugino is incredible as always. Mm-hmm. But that one scene, she has to deglove herself, and it's stuck in my brain, and to the point that for other reasons as well in that movie, I can't rewatch it just because of certain horror aspects, because it scared me so much.
Yeah.
It's not for any traumatic thing that happened to me. It's because it just genuinely scared me so much. I can't watch it again. But it's excellent, and I do recommend it. But keep in mind, there's some nasty shit in that movie.
Yeah.
Anyway. So after this insanely graphic scene, we now know Josh knew what was about to happen all along and refused to tell anybody.
Didn't say anything.
Didn't say anything. Simon and Connie try to leave, freaking out, but Siv, like, pleads with them. And then she even asks Ingmar, she's like, didn't you warn them about what they were about to see? And he's like, I tried. And they're like, yeah, right, you fucking did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fucking right. Because Pele did the same thing. What do you mean it's hard to describe? You could have just said, you're gonna see 2 people commit suicide tomorrow.
Right.
Easy as that. So yeah, it was awful. So Siv, like, tries to make them understand, like, those 2 people ended their life cycle. Rather than, like, grow old and die in pain, they'd rather joyfully give their lives in this ceremony and sacrifice themselves, you know. And to a point, it's like, okay, getting old is something that I have nightmares about for sure, and becoming older and unable to take care of yourself and what comes with aging. But, and so I get the jumps in the mind to be like, okay, yes, however, that's still taking your own life is not a good thing.
It makes you wonder what their reasoning for at 72, you know, or whatever, that you're just done. Like, it makes you wonder what their mindset is for this.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it also plays into the cycle of 9s with the 72 when it gets up to that point. But yeah, there's got to be a reason why it's like, okay, why not 9 more years after that to like 81,
right?
You know. But either way, yeah, it's really sad.
You know what? 8 in numerology, 8 plus 1 equals 9. So maybe they see that as like.
But they're not 81 though. They're 72 when this happens.
I guess I was saying if they extended the age to 81, right? If they added on that, you know, maybe 8 plus 1 equals 9, infinity. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that there's 1,000 different ways that you could dissect all of the reasoning. And that's where cults are so dangerous.
Yep.
So yeah, Siv said that they went joyfully. You know, they don't want to grow old and die in pain. And to that I say, ma'am, did you miss the part where that man lived and was in quite a bit of pain before you smashed his head in? Do we forget that?
Right.
I don't know. So as they leave, Danny's obviously shaken and needs some time. So Christian's like, why don't you take some time? It's like, once again, refusing to like be there for her in any capacity whatsoever. So she kind of goes off on her own and starts to break down. And I think it's done really well where you can feel like the walls coming down, like brick by brick in this moment as we follow her walking. Like, I don't know, I'm sure a ton of us have been in that situation where we can feel the breakdown building up and getting up and up and up, like closer to just coming right out of our faces. And so you're just walking, holding it in, but step by step, it's like, it's just revealing itself more and more and more until you finally get where you need to go and just explode, which is exactly what she does. But we leave her to kind of do that on her own. So we don't even see her fully, you know, deal with this. She just it cuts immediately to Christian finding Josh, and Josh is like on his computer writing all of this down. Like, he is just jotting away, working on his thesis. So Christian says that he's been thinking about like his own thesis, and he's decided to do it here on Harga.
Of course.
The same topic that Josh is doing.
Yeah.
But Christian's like, but like, you're going off to like Germany next. You're going off to here next. Like, there's bigger things that you're, you know, including in your thesis. I just want to do it on here, on this community, on the Harga. It's like, no matter how you try to twist this, you're still leeching off of other people's ideas. Like, not a single original thought is formulated within Christian's head. So Josh says, he's like, see, I fucking knew you were going to do this. Like, I knew that you were going to co-opt my idea and try to take it from me and leech off of me. And Christian still tries to put the blame off of him, but Josh calls him out. He's like, find your own fucking passion. Like, why are you doing this? Like, this is so uncool on so many levels. And Christian's like, well, you know, I guess we're just gonna have to split it. We're just gonna have to like share notes or whatever. So he's just simply a lost man. He has no direction. He has no passions. He is just going through life. Then Josh ends up going and talking to Pele and to like ask permission about like writing about the Harga. And Pele's like, oh, they won't want anything written down, like at all. And he goes, just so you know, I denied you the same as I denied Christian, because he already came and asked me. So Christian not only is trying to steal Josh's idea, he took the extra step, to ask Pele before Josh had a chance to. So it looks like Josh is essentially, now it's flipping. And Christian is working these things to his own benefit. And it's infuriating. Pele then finds Danny packing her bags, understandably. She's working her way through what appears to be a panic attack of some sort. And he tells her, he's like, oh, I was looking forward to, like, you coming. They're sitting on a bed together. And he offers her to sniff this rock to, like, calm her down, which is some other kind of drug, I'm sure. But she refuses. She's like, no, I don't need more drugs. Like, stop giving me drugs. And as she's, like, telling her that, like, she's fine, she doesn't need it, she doesn't want to talk, he's, like, talking over her, telling her, like, my own parents died when I was a kid. And she's like, this is not about my family. This is not about my parents. Please stop doing this. Like, I don't want to talk about this. But he just keeps going and talking at her and over her, saying, like, I never got the chance to feel lost in my grief because I had my family here with the Hargas, like, the family you deserve. And just, like, just the way that he's, like, slithering into her brain when she's so deliberately trying to put up a boundary, and he's just completely walking right through it.
Well, and he's inserting his own trauma, right?
That too.
Because he knows that she's in a vulnerable state of mind. Because let's remember, at the beginning of the movie, they said they were going to Sweden in like 2 weeks, right? And her family dies. So it has not even been a month. Not that time matters when you're dealing with grief, but she hasn't even had a solid 30 days to process what's happened to her own family. So yeah, he's found her weak spot. More cult mentality.
Wow. Taking advantage of someone's weakness? That's not in the handbook or anything.
So yeah, he's like being like, I can relate to you. And yeah, like you said, she's like, no, like, this is fucking too much.
Yeah. And then Pele has, like, his hand on top of her own hand that's resting on her thigh, and she, like, draws attention to it, and it clearly, like, makes her nervous. She's like, Christian could walk in here at any time. Like, what are you doing? And it's, yet again, it's like, it's not even she's trying to, like, put up the boundary for her own autonomy. It's because Christian will be mad if he sees it. It's not even what he's doing to her.
But yet we haven't seen Christian really touch her at all, except for the occasional grazing of the hand. So it's like, you know, her attention drawing to Pele's hand, like she's getting that physical fulfillment also.
Yeah. And it's actually interesting you bring that up, because one of the trivia points I have later is that in this cut, you do not see them kiss once.
No.
They never make any kind of intimate contact except like holding hands. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, Pele asks, does Christian feel like home to you? Do you feel held by him? And it's such a specific way of wording that, because if we flash back to what we talked about at the beginning of the movie with how Christian is holding her, it's like he wasn't really holding her at all. And it's very one-to-one. We don't get an answer, but as the camera cuts into, like, the smashed heads of the elders, like, they are being rolled over a fire to be cremated. And then later, Danny is sitting alone until Christian comes back to check on her and tells her that they should try to acclimate. Because she's like, how are you not so bothered by this? He's like, no, that was horrible. That was terrible. But he does not really sell very well that he is not affected whatsoever. Like, I think in the moment he experienced that genuine shock, but he has no empathy towards these people. So while Danny is obviously jarred for her own recent trauma of her sister committing suicide, like, it's just, you're witnessing the death of two people graphically as such. Like, how are you not unaffected by that? Like, what?
Yeah.
Or how are you not affected?
I'm going to type it in while we're running through this. I really think it's a sociopathic trait.
Sociopath is definitely more lack of empathy, I think.
Traits. Lack of empathy. Okay, here we go. Live research, guys. Live research.
Hell yeah.
So this is just straight off the Google. Sociopathy traits: lack of empathy for others, impulsive behavior, attempting to control others with threat or aggression, using intelligence, charm, or charisma to manipulate others. He doesn't really do that. not learning from mistakes or punishment, lying for personal gain. So,
all right.
If you or anyone you know are exhibiting, no, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, like definitely sociopath with narcissistic tendencies. Maybe that's how we'll classify him.
Because it does
our non-existent
the umbrella. The umbrella of psychology gets very interwoven, kind of.
Yeah.
You know?
But I'm glad. See, people, we give you real-time, real facts.
Real-time research.
You know?
Yeah.
There we go. We'll make that segment here if we ever have to do it again. Real-time research. You know. Here we go. So bedtime approaches once more, and Danny asks Josh for a sleeping pill tonight. So they cut to later with Danny sleeping, and then we hear the rest of the group sneaking out of what is now an empty cabin. So there's no one else there. And Danny gets out of bed and exits to find them driving away, leaving her behind. And there's also like a very faint flashing of blue and red lights, like police lights. But a very interesting detail that I probably rewatched just this like 2-second clip 5 times to try to figure out what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
No one in the car is looking at her as they drive away except for Mark, who was looking out at her like almost like he's yelling or laughing at her. And he's the only one that makes contact with her and actually looks out the back of the car at her. And I thought that was such an interesting detail. Yeah. Like, it's not Christian doing that. It's Mark. And I'm like, that's really weird.
Yeah.
And as the car drives away, she tries to scream, but instead of sound coming out, it's just black exhaust, like from a car. And then there's like flashes again of the crushed heads and her family's deaths as well. And then we're back in the cabin. So it was clearly a dream. And what a messed up dream that was.
Yeah. I just like having the car leave her. I just was like, just feelings of being completely abandoned and isolation. And then obviously with the exhaust, you know, thinking about her family and having just seen 2 people die.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
So the girl who eyed Christian the other day is now like sitting up in her bed, and she goes to place something under Christian's bed. And then Josh is like faking to be asleep, but he sees it and doesn't say anything. So Josh is very like, he sees and knows stuff, and then he just keeps that to himself. He does not share with anybody. The next morning, we see like the ashes of the elders being removed, and they're shoveling them onto like a dead tree. Then Josh and Mark enter the frame and approach Pele, who is tending to a garden. And Pele tells Josh that he can write about the Harga under certain conditions, like keeping things anonymous, no pictures, stuff like that. But he has to split it with Christian since he came to Pele first. And it's like, we haven't made it clear yet, but Josh is black. He is the only black man of their friend group. Simon and Connie are also people of color. So just the fact that Christian, as a white man, was like taking the steps to like essentially force himself into the line of Josh's thesis and be like, actually, I'm going to do this and I'm getting the credit first. It's just another detail.
The name choice for his character too.
Oh my god, yes. Very much on the nose there. Mark says that he's got to take a piss, so he leaves, and Josh shows Pele what that girl put under Christian's bed. And Pele's like, oh, it looks like a love rune. And that's got our ears up. Like, oh, what? Weird. So Christian shows his doofy ass face, because I gotta say, love that the actor did a fantastic job here. He looks doofy as fuck. Yeah, like he's just got like such a interesting looking face where if he does something with like the way his eyebrows sit on his face and the way he works his eyes, he just looks like such a clueless doofy piece of shit.
Yep.
And he's stoked regarding this news on his thesis, and he's like, oh, I've been so looking forward to it this whole time. Shut the actual fuck up.
Yeah.
And Pele then tells him that this girl, whose name is Maya, has taken a liking to him, and then feels the need to sprinkle in that she's just past the point where she's allowed to have sex. Ew.
Nasty.
Ew.
Thank you for that information.
Yeah, thanks, Pele. Suddenly, a man starts running towards and like yelling at Mark. because Mark's taking a piss on this tree where we just saw these people shoveling ashes. So he's pissing on their ancestral tree. And Mark acts like all innocent. Like, how was I supposed to know? It's just a dead fucking tree. Like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just an American. And it's worth noting, like, he makes zero excuses or zero apologies. Only excuses.
He's like offended that they came and yelled at him.
Yeah, he acts like, once again, he's like Christian, like, as if he's the victim. He's like, I don't know. Well, how was I supposed to know? It's like, I don't know, maybe look around with your fucking eyes.
Yeah.
Like, it's also just...
Even, like, when he's told that that's their ancestral tree, he's like, no remorse.
None. Yeah, instead of responding with, oh my God, I'm so sorry. He goes, how was I supposed to know that? Did you not look down and is like, that's weird. Everything around here is green, but the ground is gray.
Yeah.
Idiot. So Connie goes into the sleeping cabin and tells Danny that they are leaving. And she's like, oh yeah, Simon went to go get the car. And that's when one of the elders, Father Odd, comes by and tells her that Simon's been taken separately by someone else to the station. It's just the station. It's not the train. It's not the airport. It's just a station.
Interesting.
And this man makes, like, excuse after excuse to assure her that everything is fine. And Connie's like, why would he have left without... He wouldn't have left without me. That's my fiance. He's not leaving me here alone. And then Father Odd's like, oh, well, the truck only held 2, and the train only leaves in 90 minutes, so it takes 35. It's like we talked earlier about just, like, the lies. Like, they just start plugging up any hole that they possibly can with just nonsense facts, or quote facts.
And they're always quick with it.
Yes.
And because they've laid the foundation of being warm and welcoming and accommodating, you're not going to question that they have ulterior motives.
Right. And, like, yeah, so he just, like, tries to assure her, like, it's all fine, it's all fine. The truck's coming back for you soon. It'll be fine. And then we kind of leave that as Connie walks away. So Danny finds Christian speaking with one of the Harga, and he's asking about, like, the roles and jobs and how labor's divvied up among the community. And she informs him about Simon leaving, and he's just like, oh man, that's awful. Anyway, actually, on the topic of couples, like, and then he goes back to talking as if it's not so fucking weird that this man randomly left his fiance in the middle of Sweden. Like, that's sketchy, dude. And so yeah, he just uses that opportunity to turn back to this Harga man and ask about couples. He's like, it's a very close-knit community here. Like, how do you have issues with incest? And it's like, are you even listening? But he's not.
His survival skills are not there.
None. And so the man says that their elders approve of who can mate to each other. And he says cousins can sometimes mate, but ultimately they respect the, quote, incest taboo. And he says, so sometimes they have to invite outside people. Interesting. So yeah, Christian could give less of a fuck about Danny in this moment. He looks actually past her, over her, to, I'm pretty sure, see Maya in the background or something. And even she's, like, looking up at him, looking past her and looking behind her, like, I'm right here. Like, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
So Danny's called into the cooking cabin by one of the women to help them prepare, the meals for the day. And in the same moment, we see the redhead, Maya. She's, like, carrying over her own little meat tart and sets it separate from all the others. It's like, okay. I just get the icky chills.
Little suspicious.
Well, Josh is meeting with one of the elders who's teaching him about their Ruby Radar text, and he says that it's written by the disabled. So the person that we saw their face earlier was this, like, oracle named Reuben. And he draws things, so all the painting was him drawing, and then the elders interpret those drawings. And they view their oracles to be unclouded. So all of their oracles are like this, for lack of a better phrasing. And Josh asks, well, what happens when Reuben dies? Do you wait for another unclouded child to be born? And the elder tells him, well, no, he's just replaced by another because they're the product of incest. So they are incest children purposefully. And it's, ooh.
Yeah.
That's...
Josh's face, though, when that is revealed. He's like, it's just priceless. He's like, what?
Yeah. He's like, you purposefully are
Yeah.
inbreeding people? And like, yeah, so in these moments, it's like you start to tiptoe into like, I don't want to be offensive to you, but like on any level, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like to do that purposefully. Like, hey, I'm glad that you accept people no matter what, you know, as far as, you know, with their mental capabilities, you know, cool. Incest though, purposefully doing that's a bit okay.
Yeah,
it's a line to walk. And then we hear a very, very subtle sound cue of a woman screaming in the distance, and Josh kind of hears it, and then we cut back to Danny working in the kitchen, and then she kind of hears it, and she kind of perks up, and then it fades out to nothing. And then we cut over to Mark, who is walking in front of that like yellow building, and he hears the screaming and he's perking up like, what was that? But then he sees the woman, Inga, that he's been making eyes at, and he's like talking to himself. He's like, oh shit, she's right there. Oh man, she's right there. She's right there. And then she walks away, and he's like, oh, and now she's walking away. All right. It's like, what are you even doing, Mark?
But there's no cut to Christian hearing the screaming.
There is not.
There's not.
They are called for supper. Everyone's called for supper. And everyone gets their meat pie and yellow drink. That's like the best way I can describe it. I'm like, I don't know if it's lemonade or not. I'm just going to call it yellow drink.
Right.
But Christian's looks a little bit more orange than everyone else. And he even looks at his glass, seems to notice, like, and look at others to see that it's a different color, and does nothing.
Yeah. So it's like thinking back to the tapestry from earlier, like, is there period blood in it?
Pretty confident there's some period blood in there. That's a drink made for Edward Cullen right there.
Yeah.
Even in Midsommar, Twilight cannot escape us. So Danny asks if anyone's seen Connie, and then one of the Harga, like a little ways down the table, just randomly like shoves himself into the conversation, being like, "Oh yeah, Simon called on the landline earlier to calm her down, and then I drove her to the station myself." Where's your telephone lines, bro? Right. I don't think you have telephone lines out here. You certainly don't have Wi-Fi.
The math is not mathing.
Yeah. So there's some holes in their explanation. And then so Christian accepts it. He's like, "Oh, well, there you go then." And Danny's like, "Still doesn't sound right to me." So like, why would Simon just leave her? And then I love this line. Danny, without making eye contact, just kind of mumbles under her breath, like, "I could see you doing that." And Christian looks at her like, what did you say? Like, he is shocked at what just came out of her mouth. And she's like, and she doesn't say another word. She just looks ahead, eats a little bit of her pie while they're waiting.
I love it.
Oh, it's wonderful. And then Mark, looking across the table, sees the man who was like running and screaming at him earlier at the tree. And this man is staring daggers at Mark. And he goes, "I think that guy wants to kill me." Like, oh my God. And then Christian, frustratingly, like, takes a bite of his pie and then pulls a hair out of his mouth. And even Mark's like, "Is that a fucking pube?" And Christian's like, it's a hair. It's just a hair. And everyone's like, "That was a fucking pubic hair, bro." Like, and he's like, "No, it's just a hair." And then he takes a drink. And it's just...
Because now we're piecing together like, oh my God.
We are fully seeing that whole love story that Connie and Simon saw earlier, that's actually legitimate, and that is currently happening at this moment. So the woman, Inga tells Mark to come with her. "I have something to show you." And he leaves, and he goes, "I'll be right back. She's gonna show me.
She's gonna show me." Yeah.
And I'm sure that he's just like, "Oh shit, I'm finally gonna get to see some titties. Let's go." Like, he's probably all jazzed up, like, she's gonna show me her naked body.
Yeah.
So he's likely thinking he's about to get laid.
Yeah.
And then Josh is kind of like going over things in his head. We see his head turning. Then it cuts to later on, like before bed, and he gives Danny another sleeping pill. And the camera shows us that he has his sneakers on as they go to bed. So it's like, where are you going? Later, he leaves the sleeping cabin while everyone's, sleeping, and heads to where the ruby rotter is kept, where he was talking to that elder earlier. because he wants to take pictures. He wants to do exactly what they told him he's not allowed to do. Because earlier we saw him trying to like rewrite and draw the runes that he had seen by memory, and he's like, I can't fucking remember this.
Yeah.
So he needs to go take pictures. And so he's in there, he's flipping through, taking pictures of everything. And then the camera zooms in and there's a mirror behind him, or some kind of glass that's reflective. And we see someone walk into this like temple, essentially, which startles him. And then he like kind of sighs and he's like, Mark, what are you doing here, man? Like, get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And then as Josh kind of walks closer, we see that this person is naked from the waist down. So dick's out. Mark doesn't look right.
Mm-mm.
And he doesn't look right because it's not Mark. Out of nowhere from the side, as soon as Josh is starting to realize like something isn't right here, Josh gets smashed over the head with a mallet and collapses to the floor. And then we get like a shot up perspective, and someone walks over Josh's now like seizing corpse and is wearing Mark's face.
Yep.
So they have killed and skinned Mark.
Yep.
Remember that game from earlier? Skin the fool?
Skin the Mark.
Yeah. Ooh.
And
so that part is very haunting. And he's also like raspy and breathing weird. Like, oh, it's so creepy.
Yeah. So for any of you that may not ever watch this movie, Josh is played by William Jackson Harper, who also plays Chidi in The Good Place. And so my brain meshed. I was like, when he died in Midsommar, that's how he ended up in The Good Place.
Oh my god. I know the twist. I didn't watch The Good Place. I know the twist in The Good Place, and I feel like that makes sense. I feel like that's canon. So the rest of them wake up the next morning and see that Mark and Josh are both gone. And Danny, once again, is like, where the fuck are they? Where? Not like they could have gone anywhere. We're only in the middle of nowhere. And Christian could give less of a fuck. He's like, I don't know. Mark's probably still off with that girl. And then Josh is, I don't know, somewhere else. Then at breakfast, the Harga elder reports that their sacred text has been stolen. And afterwards, they approach Danny and Christian, asking, hey, where are your friends at? Looks a little suspicious. Christian, first of all, immediately go to Josh, and they're like, so Josh probably took it, right? But it's not really like the Harga clue in. They're like, we know that your friend Josh was like very curious about the ruby rotter. Could he have taken it? And instead of like defending his friend, Christian completely goes over the top and being like, no, we don't associate with them. If he is the one that took that, he is no friend of ours, no collaborator of mine. Like, we are just appalled at what what he did.
Yeah, he immediately threw him under the bus.
Immediately. And Danny just like is looking up at Christian, completely disturbed and in shock. Like, you just completely flipped on your friends with zero evidence. Like, what the fuck is going on? So they split up, and Danny goes with the women for the day's activities, and Christian is to go to Siv's house because he wants to meet with her. And we cut to like another yellow drink with some kind of plant bits in there is getting mixed up, and the women line up to take a drink, and they're all in their white dresses and flower crowns. So Danny asks what it is they're drinking, and the girl, kind of showing her the ropes and such, says it's tea for the competition. And then they drink it. So more hallucinogens, more psychedelics. And they, once again, they kind of do this, I will say, as culty as it is, I do kind of like how they toast each other here. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So they both put the cup that they're holding their hand in, they put on the other person's shoulder across from them. And then they take a drink and then do the breathing.
Yeah.
I think it's really very simple, but very cool. And I like that kind of detail.
It's like a form of connection.
Yeah, definitely. And all of the girls are like spaced in a spiral and lined up around a large pole, which, for lack of a better term, I'm going to assume is a maypole. And they're all kind of like holding hands and waiting for something. And then Danny looks down and her feet start to like look like grass. It's like,
yep. So she's definitely been dosed without her consent.
Yeah. And not that I'm blaming her thought process whatsoever. However, girl, you have been surrounded by psychedelics since the moment you stepped foot here. What made you think that this was not that?
Right. Right.
But still, regardless, a woman explains a legend of women that were forced to dance until death. So this is like how they pay homage. They have the women dance until they fall down. So not die, but just fall down. And the last woman standing is crowned the winner. So music begins and they start skipping and dancing and they're having a good time and music's playing. Then we cut to Christian, who's seated in that room in front of some art depicting a bear that is burning, which I thought was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Then Civ invites him into the next room. Walls continue to be covered in all different kinds of rooms and iconography, and they sit like knee to knee, so it's very close, and Christian is visibly uncomfortable by this. And Civ asks how he feels about Maya, because she's taken a likeness to him, and he's been approved to mate with her, as she's the perfect astrological match.
Alrighty then.
That got me thinking, I'm like, so they've done they've done digging on these people to know his astrological, not even just his sign, but like, I'm sure that they go far more in depth than like, I'm a Gemini,
Yeah.
So I feel like they got a lot more detail going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So cutting back to Danny dancing, she's smiling, having a fun time. They're like starting and stopping and changing positions, and like the women fall one by one. And it's a kind of a nice, happy moment, honestly. It's joyous.
It is. Even though she's under the influence, this is the first time that we've seen her genuinely smile in the film.
Yeah. And she is still like, even in that moment though, she's still going like in and out of being like overwhelmed by the trip, but then in the moment and having fun. And then, oh my God, what's happening? But oh no, wait, then I'm having fun. Like it's very fluid like that. I thought that was really cool. Then Danny bumps into a girl that like pukes and no one pays attention to her whatsoever. And I thought that was so weird. Then Christian comes outside and sits down with everybody else watching the competition, and Maya falls. I never realized how like American soccer player like fall out of the dance that she does. Like she just sees him and then does like the Frodo tripping himself in the Rings of Return of the King, where he's just like, he falls, he's like, oh no, I fell, oh my gosh, I'm out of the competition. And then she like wanders by him and she's like all like, oh my God, I'm so loopy. And I'm just like, God, you're such a fucking pick-me, aren't you? And then the camera cuts to sometime later, and many more women have fallen out because there's 8 left. And Danny celebrates with the girls, and then she like looks around to see like Christian, who she is hoping is going to be looking at her and like celebrating, like, oh my God, look how far you've done. But he is not paying attention. He is having a bad time. He's like looking at the ground, looking over at Maya. And so her smile immediately fades back, and it's like, oh God.
Yeah, she's like just the yearning for him to like pay attention to her, and like you just said, like, look what I did. He's just a fuck. He's an absolute fuck.
Give her any speck of attention.
Yeah.
Then a woman kind of stumbles over and brings Christian the same drink that they've all drank. And at first he refuses, but then he chooses to drink it. And at this point, this is where we kind of start to not empathize, or sympathize for him, but we start to see like just how bad he's about to have it. And, there is an element of feeling bad for him in this moment. Like he's now the one that feels pressured to drink and dose himself, where originally it was Danny at the beginning of the movie. So he drinks it and he's like, well, fuck it, here I go. And Danny is like starting to look real out of it, and she's phasing in and out of her trip, but she is still dancing. And I had a thought that I'm like, you know what, if they made Mamma Mia today, I hope she would be in that. I hope she'd be in it. I've only heard her sing a little bit, but I know that she's got a voice in there. I know she's got a great voice. And so now the women are like lazily just swaying because they're just full of exhaustion. They have nothing left in the tank. And then they kind of start talking to Danny in Swedish, and she's like, I don't speak Swedish. And then they're like slurring. And then she starts speaking Swedish when she doesn't know it. And they're all like, oh my God, you're understanding me. And like, it's really cute and like a moment of connection. It shows that she's like starting to really connect with these people on a much deeper level. And then the last two girls collapse, and Danny wins. So as soon as everyone wins, everyone starts running to her, and instead of clapping, they're all like waving their hands, like, what is it, the ASL version of clapping, right?
Yep.
And so everyone runs around her and celebrating her. They get a even bigger, beautiful flower crown and put that on her, as well as this shawl that's covered in colorful flowers. And if you look closely, you see the blooms pulsing in and out, just like the trees were earlier. Mm-hmm. It's just those little details that just make me salivate.
Yeah. And I didn't even notice that until this last time that I watched it. I was like, oh, shit, you're right. Yeah. And it's cool because amongst the fact that we're in this very fucked up environment, we are getting to see the transition of the film from being very misogynistic in the beginning to now Danny is quite literally being celebrated. We still don't know fully what the May Queen entails, but it was very nice to see like her getting some praise, right? Getting some bit of happiness. So
yeah, and it's also this moment is so symbolic and so important that from this recent watch through that I did. So she's kind of like taken by everybody, and they get a picture taken of all of her, and then Christian's like standing in the way, like on the opposite side behind the photographer. Like, he is not involved in this whatsoever. And then they kind of turn her around, and she's like pushed through the gathering of Hargas that are all congratulating her. They're very passionate. And then she sees her mom and dad wander through the group of them. And then Pele comes by, grabs her by the face, and just kisses her flat on the mouth.
Mm-hmm. And then, it's like an embracing kiss almost.
It is like, it looks passionate. Like,
it does.
He cares about Danny. Yeah. You can see that. And I love this moment because it's such a good visual representation of her really taking the big steps now to leave all of that behind, her previous life. We are literally seeing her step on a platform and then lifted by everybody else to get carried away while they all sing, and they leave Christian behind all alone. So now he's the one that's alone. He's the one that's isolated and being left behind. And I think it's just really a really cool spot where it's just like smacking you over the face. It's like even seeing her own parents within the crowd of Hargas, and they're dressed like Hargas as well. Yeah. And so it's really even more of a push to be like, this is your family. This is where your family is. It's not back there.
Right.
So the heavy indoctrination is starting to roll in here. And so as she leaves Christian behind, she's carried to a table that is set for a feast, and they're all standing and waiting for her to sit, just like the elders were the other day. So then she comes by, she sits, and now she has a flower throne, which is covered in these like vines. And as she it's such a cool effect. As she runs her hand around the arm of the chair, the throne that she's in with all the vines like almost connect to her and like follow her up, like it's reacting to her.
Yeah.
And it's just such a cool detail that like she's just really becoming one with this, role that she's just stepped into, and really starting to embrace it and thinking it's really incredible. And everyone is staring at her. So she starts to eat, and then they all follow. So she's just kind of like learning by trial almost, where she's just like, you want me to do this? And then they all start doing that. And then Christian eventually makes it to the table, and he is just not looking good at all. He is having a bad trip.
Yeah. He's definitely being forced to look at himself, and he was really feeling that. So like I had said earlier, when Danny first ate the mushrooms, going into it with a bad headspace, he obviously went into this trip with a bad headspace. And I found it interesting. Again, I might be looking too much into it, but I feel like doing this with you never look too much into it. So when he comes in and he's sitting on the table, he's sitting on the left side of the table, right? And energetically, there's like this whole thing with spiritualism that the left side of your body is your feminine side and the right side is masculine. So I found that very interesting that he is sitting on what would be considered her feminine side, where she is now in power. So
interesting. I love that detail.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so
I
cool.
was like, oh shit.
No, that's really awesome. So then the Harga try to feed her like this salt herring to Danny, and it's very like infantilizing almost, the way that she's like cowering and they're like dangling it over her mouth, and then she spits it out and they all laugh at her. It's like this really weird, really strange, like she's in this position of power, but then they're like bringing her back down at the same time by like laughing at her. It was very weird.
It does make me wonder though now, the shape of the table being a fish and then them bringing her a fish.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, because I think I forget specifically what they say it's in reference to, but they say like, you know, now you'll eat this herring to
it's supposed to be good luck or something. Yeah.
So Christian, we cut over to him sweating. He's just sweating.
He's having a bad time.
He asked this man next to him, like, "Hey, sir, like, what's happening? What's going on?" And then the man just claps in his face, and the camera like sends everything around Christian into a blur. And it shouldn't be funny. It really shouldn't. But after seeing what an absolute piece of shit this man was the entire movie, the way that he just starts to tear up and look at the man just like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
I know that it's really, really bad and he's getting fucked with on like such an elemental level. So it's really terrifying in that aspect. But just like the delivery of it, and I'm just like, you little fucking...
I loved it because I took it as the man clapping in his face, like, stop talking. Yeah. You know?
No, it 100% is. And yeah, it's just, I think it was just so interesting that like, yeah, just further like snapping him into reality. Like, stop. And that's just kind of further isolating him by cutting him off from everything and making him surrounded by this blur. It's just, it's fantastic cinematography and filmmaking. So they toast to the May Queen, and a woman next to Danny asks her, "Are you family now?" And it's like, she doesn't give an answer though.
Moving quick, aren't we?
Yeah. So Christian sees Maya leave the table, and he just kind of watches her with her eyes, and Siv is also just eyeing Christian the entire time. And then she instructs Danny to go leave with some other women and go bless the crops for like a fruitful harvest. Danny asks if Christian can come, but she just goes, "No, the queen rides alone."
I love that. Like, I loved that part. Yeah, because it's like representing her maiden voyage, right? Maiden voyage definition being the first trip a ship or a boat is taking its intended role. And I'm like, well, in this case, the ship would be Danny stepping into her role as the May Queen. So
yeah. Danny, so she gets into a carriage that's covered in more of those vines, and she's pulled away. Once she leaves, there's this other woman that walks out of one of the cabins towards Christian, scattering flowers kind of along her way. He continues looking very not good. Then cut back to Danny. She does a blessing with the other Harga women, while Christian changes into like a Harga robe or clothing of some sort. Then the elder kind of puts a bowl up to his face and opens it, and this like misty smoke comes out of it, and he just says, "Inhale for your vitality."
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, don't like that. Then Christian enters a chamber of naked women that are all standing in a semicircle, and they're all humming. And Maya is on the floor, also naked, laying in a bed of flowers. Honestly, it's a really beautiful like scene that's set, the way that she's laying in this bed of flowers. It looks very comfortable, I must be honest.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's titties and bushes of all shapes and sizes. You know, they are just all ages, shapes, don't matter. I gotta say, I have never seen more elderly dicks and vaginas until I started watching Ari Aster movies.
Oh yeah.
Because this will not change in Hereditary. If anything, there's more. So one woman kind of walks over and disrobes Christian, and he's naked. And then this is obviously a mating ritual of some sort.
Yeah, and he just blindly falls into sync with everything. So now I'm like, oh yeah, maybe the spell did work. The whole hair pie. And
I feel like whether it's that love spell or the combination of drugs that he's been fed, like you even looking at his eyes, his pupils are so dilated. Like he is drugged to high heaven.
Just spun out.
Yeah. And so this is where like a trigger warning comes up for some like not violent sexual assault, but it is assault nonetheless.
Absolutely.
And So he starts having sex with Maya, and she like reaches up to another woman behind her who like gets down next to them and starts singing to Maya, which like freaks Christian out. But then she makes eye contact with him and starts singing to him. Almost like it felt very siren-y to me. Like just a calling to be like, no, just keep going. You like this, you want this. And Maya starts moaning, and then all of the women start moaning in unison. And it's like a chorus of these like, they're moaning, but it's musical. So they're doing these like, it's like very weird and very unsettling. And like, but Christian just thrusts them away. He's having sex. And then we go back to Danny, and the others arrive back, and she hears this loud moaning, and she's like, what's that? And they tell her, it's not for you. It's not for them. And she's like, I'm gonna go see what's going on anyway. Because she ain't no Christian. As in character Christian. Like, she's like, I hear something weird, I'm going to investigate it. I'm not going to brush it off.
Right.
So, and we start to see the iconic Flo frown that made its first appearance in this movie. And so she walks over, and you can see, like, she already knows what she's about to see. Like, she is mentally preparing herself for what she's about to witness. She kind of walks over, peers inside the keyhole, and sees Christian not only having sex with another woman, but are surrounded by other women. So she, of course, has a breakdown, runs away, and vomits all over the floor. And then the group of women that she's with come to console her, and they like usher her into the living quarters, where they all like crowd around her. She's laying on a bed, and it's almost like she's trying to escape them all. She's like on her bed. She's like, let me just be on my bed. But they're all like towering over her. They're all touching her face and stroking her hair. And it's really overstimulating, honestly, to watch it. Because like you could see Danny is trying to like tamper down her breakdown that's trying to fight its way out. She's being touched and like felt and overcrowded, and just like the anxiety of this scene building up just like got me so bad this last time.
Yeah.
Then she ends up crawling off her bed onto the ground. She's just trying anything to get away from these people, because all that she knows has been dealing with these kind of feelings and emotions alone. That's what she knows. So that's what she's trying to find. But instead, all these women circle around her. One of them grabs her by the face and just makes eye contact with her. And they start to like breathe with her as her breathing calms down. But instead of calming down completely, she just goes full rage mode. And she starts crying and screaming, and the women are screaming around her in sync with her. And it's just this really great moment, because it's not only them consoling her, but it's also allowing her to like fully embrace all of the anger too that's with her, because the screaming goes from like sad and upset to like furious and just like like they are screaming at the top of their lungs. So it's like it goes from a very overwhelming scene to like almost touching, where she now has this like community and people around her that are allowing her to feel her feelings and feeling them with her, like your friends do, you know?
It's like the perfect depiction of collective feminine rage. And so like we see it in this scene, right, where they're breathing with her and screaming with her. And we obviously saw it in the scene with the two elders that jumped off the cliff, and the one that was still alive, but he was like moaning, and the crowd is moaning with him. You see that a lot throughout this movie, where the collective, not hive mind, but the collective energy, they all integrate with each other. And I loved this scene. I mean, I know it was overstimulating. Absolutely. They did a great job of capturing that. But I just, when they're holding she's holding Florence's face, and just like that understanding of pain as a woman, I thought it was so good.
Yeah, the point that it gets to, I really did enjoy. But yeah, it was the ride to get there that I was just
going like, into it was rough. Yeah, I was like, let her go.
Yeah, you're like fighting, but then she eventually leans into it and she embraces it, and it's like, oh, it's healing. We're healing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So cutting from that over to Christian. So now we're getting also two very different vibes of, like you said, the female rage, female pleasure. So we're getting two of those back to back. So now a woman has gone behind him, though, and is now pushing his booty cheeks to get him to thrust. Maya tells him to finish, and then he does. And then, like, as he pulls out, like, she kind of pulls her legs up to her to be like, oh, I can feel the baby. And she doesn't say that in English, so he doesn't know what she says. But it's almost like after that, I don't know if this is post-nut clarity. I don't know. But he kind of, like, snaps to it. And he gets freaked out. So he runs out fully naked. And he's, like, running around trying to find shelter. He's holding himself. And he starts to, like, sprint towards a shed. And then we see a garden with a leg sticking out of the ground with a rune, like, painted on the sole of the foot. It's like, what the fuck? So things are starting to unravel very quickly now. Then he eventually does run into a shed, and he sees something even more fucked up. This is a heavy gore here.
Yeah.
Simon is strung up by his arms and legs by, like, ropes and wires. He's decorated with flowers, and his back has been, like, completely opened and dissected. His ribs are removed, and his lungs have been lifted from his back and are, like, hanging up as if they're wings. And his eyes have been replaced by flowers. And if we listen closely, you can hear him still breathing. Fucking terrifying.
Pure nightmare fuel.
It reminded me so much of, have you watched the show Hannibal with Mads Mikkelsen? Part of it. There's I don't actually know. It's the movie. I'm sorry, Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah.
With the officer when Hannibal escapes, he kind of does that similar kind of deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely haunting. And so Christian, like, approaches him and then gets underneath him and, like, turns his head up to look into like his no longer eyes, but there's these flowers in his eyes. And I hate to say, but it's almost like beautiful imagery. It's horrifyingly beautiful.
Yeah.
And Christian is then ambushed by two elders who blow a powder in his face. He collapses, and then they manually shut his eyes, and everything goes dark.
They're like, yep.
There you go. And then you hear, it's still dark, and we hear a voice, and then the eyes open one by one, and so we're in Christian's point of view. And it's this woman from before who says, he can't speak and he can't move, so just hang tight. And it's like, what do you mean?
Right.
Hang tight. And then Danny is now sitting on stage in a throne, draped in one of the most stunning pieces of costuming I think has ever been created for film. It is this dress of flowers with an even larger flower crown now to match. And it's not even a dress. It's just like this massive cape that's just engulfing her. All you can see is Danny's head. And she looks distraught. She looks like she has been crying. She is upset. And Siv explains that they gather to celebrate their special son and sacrifice 9 lives. She explains that for every, quote, new blood, they will sacrifice one of their own. So, the 4 new bloods being Mark, Josh, Simon, and Connie. And the 4 Harga are contained of the 2 Cliff elders who committed suicide. And then there's also 2 volunteers, who are Ingmar and Ulf. And Ulf is the one who went after Mark. Danny sees the Oracle sitting on what looks like a cloud, and I thought that was a very interesting shot to put in there, because I think she's just hallucinating that. I do not think that's real.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, but I've never bought into the fact that that's real.
Yeah, it was very odd, like very standout, like it stood out. For sure.
Yeah. They also describe that Pele is to be rewarded for his unclouded intuition by supplying new blood and their May Queen. When they say, because we've already heard this unclouded come from
a lot.
And they use the unclouded as their oracles, which are the product of incest. So that made me think, is Pele the product of incest as well? I don't know, but it is what it is. And Christian is, we can see, seated in front of the stage facing the Harga with his back to Danny. And they say that she is going to choose the 9th sacrifice and will choose between Christian and a randomly selected Harga. So the Harga and Christian, see, there I go again, Christian, are placed in front of Danny to make her choice. And the camera zooms in on Danny, and we can tell she's like already made her decision, but is trying to come to terms with it. And now we get the full flow frown, and it is a wonder. It's a wonder to behold. The way that she contorts her mouth in this way. It's the most perfect, like, emoji frown ever.
It is.
And she's kind of looking at Christian, and she knows the choice that she's going to make, but she's still very emotional over it.
Yeah.
And now we see the presentation of the bodies. And the corpses of all of the foreigners and the sacrificed Harga are placed in this yellow building. And it's so haunting. When they place all these bodies, they look like they're heavy. You expect them, they're corpses. They're going to be heavy. But it's specifically Mark's body. So Mark is wheeled in, and you see that we know his face was skinned. And so it's attached to like this gold, clothing. And he's wearing a fool's hat. So he was the fool, Skin the Fool.
Yep.
And when the Harga goes to put him and sit him up, he picks him up like he's a fucking child. Like, so there's nothing to him other than the skin on his face. And it's like, there's something about that where you have the expectation about how someone is about to move a body, and then it's completely the opposite. There's something so unsettling about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I found it very eerie.
It's like brain splitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so inside another building, the bear from earlier is now dead, and it's laying on a table, and it's being dissected. And one of the elders is teaching one of the children how to like cut out the organs. He's like, "Now make sure you don't nick the intestine. We don't want them damaged." They dissect the bear, and then they wheel Christian over. Then they put him in the bear.
Yep.
So we cut, and Christian is making the most terrified face he can manage without having the ability to move his body, and it's just all in his eyes, and it's so wonderfully acted that you can see all of the terror and fear in his eyes. It's really well done,
especially when we've seen him confident the entire movie.
Yeah, to see it completely flipped on his head in such a like drastic way, it's chilling. And yeah, so they wheel him over, shove him up there, and and he's conscious for all that. So he was getting shoved up in that bear, fully aware of what was going on. And so his head is kind of sticking out of the bear mouth. And fun fact, my husband and I have bear onesies, and I had him dress up as a bear once. So, like I said, this movie was really healing for me.
Yeah. And is it Father Odd? I don't think it's Father Odd.
Maybe one of the elders. They're all
one of the elders, yeah. As they're starting their ceremony, he tells Christian, which I just thought was so intense. He's like performing this closing ceremony, and he tells him, "We banish you now to the deepest recesses where you may reflect on your wickedness." Damn.
Yeah, and like it is because of like symbolically what he's representing within the bear. So to them, they're not talking to Christian, the person. They're talking to the bear and what he represents. But it is also talking to Christian. It's so good.
Yes, I'm like, my gosh,
perfect.
Yeah,
send him to Nyktos. Yeah. So
we're just gonna start crossing over all of the stuff we covered.
So the two living Harga sacrifices, Ingmar and Ulf, one of the elders brings over like the root of a yew tree, and tells one of them to feel no pain, tells the other to feel no fear. And one final blessing is done, and then people come in with torches, and the building is set on fire. And Danny is outside watching the building burn, along with Christian and everything about her past, honestly. And so this is just letting it all be burnt to crisp. And it's really a cool detail that as like the bear around him starts to catch fire, you can hear Christian start to get out some of these like screams because he's working his way through whatever's drug is in his system. And he almost sounds like he's a bear trying to roar. It's really, really eerie. And then the two sacrifices start burning and screaming. So it's a really cool moment where the two of them are looking at each other, and they were just given this drug that they're not supposed to feel fear. they're not supposed to feel pain. Why is this fearful? Why is this painful? And they kind of have this moment of understanding that like everything's been a lie and nothing that they've come to know is true. And it's like, ooh, it is such a moment.
Yeah.
And as everyone outside starts to hear all this screaming, they share in that pain and they start screaming and yelling and thrashing all over the place. And it's like one of the most iconic shots of Dani trying to walk in this massive dress, and she's walking across the frame. We see the full dress with this full floral cape behind her, and she's kind of walking and stumbling in front of the burning building, screaming and crying in grief and in pain. And then she kind of has a moment where she stops and she looks around and she sees everybody else crying and screaming in pain and kind of being in that moment together. And then we get the really good shot of kind of the building burning that's superimposed, kind of faded in, with Dani giving this like really haunting smile that is not, it is not a smile of someone who has found like freedom, you know?
Yeah.
It's a smile for her, and she is fully accepting, like, I found my people. I found where I belong, and I'm letting go of all of this terrifying, terrible, awful things that have happened to me. I'm in a better place now. But there's still it's still something off about it in her eyes, where while you might feel that way, what situation are you actually in now?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the movie ends, and that's it.
That's it. That's Midsommar.
Yeah. So what were you gonna say about Dani's smile, though? I want to know what your thoughts are.
Well, so a couple of things, like, you know, the burning of anything is very symbolic because fire is a cleanser. So, and the fact that this building is going up in flames with Christian in it, along with everything that she's endured, you know, like you said, her entire past, her past life is simply burning away the old to let in for the new. But yeah, her smile, I feel like it's kind of like, okay, now that's over. Now what?
Yeah, she's like she's so in the moment that we don't even really get to see her like try to contemplate like, well, what's tomorrow gonna look like?
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know what's going on with Dani and the cult anymore. We don't.
That's it. That's where it ends.
Yeah.
So we want to get into some trivia. And so I keep mentioning like the girls walking weird, that Mark mentioned when they're picking the flowers. And I also pretty much got all of these trivia things from IMDb. So in IMDb trivia, it says, picking flowers while walking backwards is a local variation on a very common Midsommar tradition. You pick 7 or 9 different kinds of flowers while following specific rules. The rules can vary in parts of the country, but essentially having to walk backwards is a common rule, as is having to cross 7 fences and having to stay quiet during the whole procedure. The flowers are then placed under your pillow, and during the night, you supposedly dream about your future husband. So very interesting.
Yeah.
Another piece of trivia, when the camera is cutting to everyone on the compound, we kept mentioning that they hear faint screaming, but we never find out where that's coming from. Well, it is assumed that this is Connie being murdered, because it's very clearly a woman screaming.
Yeah.
And when we see Connie's corpse being wheeled in the barrow, you can see it's very like gray and wet and bloated. So it kind of insinuates that the villagers drowned her in the nearby lake after she went to go find Simon, when they obviously killed Simon. Another one is towards the end of the film, when this is one of those things. So when Dani is lifted onto the pedestal and she's being carried to the dinner table, viewers are supposedly can make out her sister's face attached with the hose, like the exhaust tube in her mouth, in the trees.
Okay.
I've seen the photos online of this. I even tried to look at it when I was watching the movie, and honestly, I have never been able to see it, but I fully understand if that is actually there. I trust other people's vision if that's what they're seeing. A really cool kind of, piece of trivia that I found out that I thought was very respectable is after the sex scene, Christian was supposed to run away in the robe that he had entered with. But the actor, Jack Rayner, who played Christian, suggested himself that Christian run out completely nude to appear more vulnerable. And that's why he flees completely nude. Jack Rayner was supposedly inspired by having recently watched the original Last House on the Left, which I have not seen. I've only seen the remake. And like many films in horror, female characters are constantly disrobed, naked, humiliated, and or assaulted before succumbing to their ultimate demise. And he felt that it was due time to make the male characters feel the same way and be presented the same way. And just
I love him for that. Yeah,
love
that's
that.
awesome.
Because, I mean, to me, I'm like, oh, it just made sense that he was so panicked that he ran out. But to know that there was so much more thought put into that, and it's just like, you know what? You're fucking right.
I love that.
Like, I just watched I Spit on Your Grave for the first time a few weeks ago. Really heavy movie. Heavy trigger warning on sexual assault there. It's really, really devastating to watch. But it's a really great revenge story. It's really great good for her movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing that after this woman is, spoiler alert, assaulted multiple times by multiple men, she just wanders off naked and is left to wander off naked. Like, so I really appreciated that this actor took the step to be like, you know what? I'm going to put myself out there to make sure that we're getting, it's not only the women. And I'm like, hell yeah. We don't like that it had to happen, but we appreciate you for
absolutely
bringing up that, that topic. And we've already made reference to the skin the fool, Mark being the fool, he was skinned. So remember that tapestry mural that we mentioned at the very beginning of that movie? So the opening mural from left to right foreshadows the entire events of the film. If you just pause on that tapestry, the entire plot of the film is there.
That's
from
wild.
Yeah, Danny and Christian reviewing Pele as the mastermind, from, from inviting them all to Harga. You see when the visitors reach the village, like just the flowers under the pillow. There's just like all of the plot points that we've come to see in this movie are depicted in that tapestry.
Wow.
And it is wild. So that's it for, trivia. That's awesome. That's Midsommar, And we do have a couple more like topics to press on here. So that is Midsommar, though, by Ari Aster. A good for her movie. On a base level, you could argue that point. When I first watched this, I definitely came out of that was like, yeah, good for her. The more I watch it, I'm like, on a very base level. But we can't end this episode without also bringing attention to the themes of white supremacy within the Harga, as well as the way that they utilize drugs to influence the minds of their vulnerable targets. So it's not hard to miss that literally all of the cult members are white in ethnicity, and they're all wearing white clothing. So very purity focused already. White is a, quote, pure color. And they live in the land of the midnight sun, so they're so far removed from anything dark. And their clothes are also a stark contrast to those of the newcomers. So not only is it they're white people, and some of the, I think, half of the people of the, quote, new bloods that have arrived are people of color.
Yep.
So it's a very stark contrast just in clothing, but also in skin color. And Aster said in an interview with Daily News that the Harga only recruit white people into the cult as well. So any newcomers that come along, they're not making it in if they're white. Or unless they're white, sorry.
Yeah.
We also see that all of the May Queen photographs that Danny sees are all of white women. Josh, who is, as we said, black and the darkest skinned of the newcomers, is immediately scapegoated by Christian as soon as he goes missing. And that can indicate that Christian is already on his path to indoctrination, but I think it could be argued that Christian is also just a white man.
Yeah.
So he's just probably base racist anyway. And the Harga accused Josh at first, like I said, but Christian really doubles down and tries to sell it. It's like, you could have defended, but instead you went the opposite direction there. As well as mixed with the co-opting of his own thesis. It's like, can you stop stealing from other cultures? For the love of God. Yeah. White people, quit it. And it's also worth noting that certain neo-Nazi groups do tend to obsess over Nordic mythology and co-opt certain aspects of said mythology that they enjoy. For example, one group may use like the hammer of Thor as a symbol of their so-called strength. Like, it's stuff like that, you know? I just think that Midsommar is a wonderfully mind-bending, immersive movie that really leaves you thinking on so many different levels. You know, you ask yourself the question, was I just indoctrinated into this cult by feeling happy for Dani?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We're following her on her journey of being brainwashed and joining a cult that is disguised as a family, as they usually can be. In the end, she's finally able to break away from, you know, the controlling and mentally abusive boyfriend who's been holding her down all this time, but at the cost of his life, his friends' lives, and in a way, her own life. Florence Pugh, I love this too, also said in an interview that she felt sad leaving Dani, like where Dani was at. As an actress, Florence felt really bad leaving her in that state. Like, to go on to her next project but abandoning this woman who's in a pretty dire situation is pretty tragic. So I can imagine, especially on an actor level where you are immersing yourself in this role and you are getting to know the character you're portraying really deeply, and then having to just cut that off and say goodbye and leave this poor woman in a terrible, terrible situation and scenery. Like, I can only imagine what that was like.
Yeah.
But that's all I gotta say on it. I'll let you talk because I have spewed everything I possibly can.
Well, you did an absolutely wonderful job with coverage, and I love your brain so much. And I just want to give a few cents about the psychedelic influence throughout this movie, because I am like a fucking bloodhound with this. So psychedelics and cults are pretty much like peanut butter and jelly. They just don't taste as good. They are hands down like the absolute key and lock to unlock the mind. And for an individual that's wanting to reign control, right? This is like textbook word, it's walkthrough. How do you want to start a cult?
Yeah.
This is very traditional, like look at Manson, Jim Jones, list goes on and on. And the science, and now I am not a scientist. Okay. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a licensed professional. I just have my own life experience and what I personally know. But the science behind what happens to your brain, essentially, when you're under the influences of these substances, your brain synapses can quite literally break apart and rewire. So it leaves an individual very vulnerable. It's like stripping down everything that you know, your ego, everything that you've been conditioned from what you're taught as a child, standardized testing in schools, things like that, everything that you know. So you're completely wide open. There are, I will say this, there are proven healing effects to using them in a medicinal setting, such as like there are certain practices that will use mushrooms in a medicinal dose where it's monitored by professionals. That could quite literally be an alternative to chemically packed antidepressants. We're in an age of science now where things like ketamine therapy and ayahuasca and ibogaine treatments are proving effective with positive long-term effects and helping people work through deep-rooted trauma. For example, with these ibogaine clinics, former heroin users will go in from using a gram a day and be completely sober coming out of it. In Midsommar, though, we see a lot of the heavy manipulation, influence, and non-consensual dosing, which is what happens in a cult. Not every single one, but we see a lot of that. In One Light, Dani quite literally burned her past to the ground and the spiritual significance through purging through fire, as I already said. However, the power behind these substances does have a very dark side of the coin when used with ill intent. And with the power of working with all areas of consciousness, your subconsciousness, your waking consciousness, your dream state, etc. When you're under the influence of, say, acid, which is, I know that she had the mushroom tea. I kind of was thinking it might be depicted in the tea that she took for the maypole dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, the experiences and emotions that you go through while under the influence of something like that can quite literally cement whatever you're experiencing in that moment. So while your brain synapse may be rewiring, when you come down, whatever you experience in that state of mind is going to lock in and rewire. And it can often throw someone into what's referred to as permatripping, or in the case of this movie, spiritual psychosis. It's a very real thing. I've been friends with people that it's happened to, and it's absolutely terrifying.
Sounds it.
It's horrible. Yeah. And this is just a little side note of info that I happen to have.
Yeah. Lay it on us.
The Grateful Dead family, they were one of the first communities to have what would be referred to as pure LSD, right?
Okay.
Now, as time has gone on, and you see it even with substances like weed, where people are tampering it with fentanyl, which is horrible. That's also happened with every substance on the market, right?
Sure.
So, like, there are certain people in the communities that are very protective over this stuff. And like someone that I knew had like fake tampered substance and were passing it out. And someone from the Dead family found out, and they quite literally tied them to a tree and dosed them and left them there.
Oh, shit.
So.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I was not expecting to go that route. Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrifying.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, even though this is a movie, it's very translates to real life.
Yeah, it's definitely still based in reality in some points.
Yeah. For sure. And so control of the mind is the most powerful form. If you have someone gripped by their faith and their spirit, you've got full control over them.
Yeah. Well, I loved diving into this movie. I feel like we talked about it way longer than we expected to, but I adore how long we're missing book club for this.
I know.
So we gotta get out of here so we can go to book club. But we hope that you've enjoyed this change of pace and exploration into a film.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to bring you more, and it is in fact coming at you next week as we continue our Ari Aster series with Hereditary. Woo! And I can't wait. This one is much more straightforward horror.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking good. Toni Collette, justice for Toni Collette, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
So we'll get into that next week, though. For now, thanks for listening to Blood, Books, and Binge Watching. We'll catch you next time.